Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Axiom Space's AX-3 mission. You're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 39A, where Dragon is aboard a Falcon 9 rocket, getting ready to fuel up in just about an hour's time. The crew has already ingressed the vehicle for what it will be the first ever all-European commercial mission to the International Space Station. There's a wide shot of the launch site there, a reflying booster. We'll dive into everything we know about today's booster and the Dragon capsule, but first, as always, if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and we're going to listen into Axiom Space's live coverage in just a moment. But first, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. Also, make sure to engage that like button and share out the stream. Invite people to join us. We did have a 24-hour scrub yesterday due to an issue with the parachute system, but that is all checked out, and we are continuing through today's count. Now, T-minus 2 hours, 5 minutes, and counting till launch of Crew Dragon for the first all-European commercial mission to the International Space Station. The crew will spend about 14 days on board. Now, one of the people flying on board previously flew with Axiom, Michael Lopez Alegria. Will be flying for his second time with Axiom and second time on Dragon as commander. This is one of the rules NASA has for visiting the International Space Station, is you have to have a previous NASA or partner astronaut on board to be able to fly Dragon to and from, even though Dragon's fully autonomous. As we get people joining in here, it's great to have you all here joining us in the chat. Make sure you're letting us know where you're watching from. We're going to listen into updates here from Mission Control. Grant, thanks so much for becoming a suborbital explorer. We appreciate your support. And we're going to listen now in for an update as we continue the countdown to launch of AX-3.
All right. Well, this crew is the first all-European crew. We have our commander MLA, Michael Lopez Alegria, but beyond that, it's noteworthy to note that the AX-3 is the first all-European commercial crew to visit the orbiting lab, including the first astronaut from the country of Turkey. So we have a lot of ground to cover today, but our immediate focus is those 4 astronauts that you see on the screen. So let's go ahead and introduce them to you now. As I mentioned, first up, the commander of our flight today, Michael Lopez Alegria, or MLA, is no stranger to human spaceflight. He is a dual citizen of the United States and Spain. AX-3 marks his 6th mission to space, having completed 3 space shuttle flights and a Soyuz mission as a NASA astronaut, prior to commanding AX-1 with Axiom Space. MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks.
We're commencing a health check for the launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer change, and then we'll go back to pad hatch closed.
We copy, Jake.
MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks, or EVAs, and the cumulative amount of time spent conducting spacewalks. In 2020, he was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, and today, when he's not in low Earth orbit, MLA serves as Axiom Space's chief astronaut.
Our pilot on today's flight, Colonel Walter Villadei from the Italian Air Force, is taking his inaugural trip to low Earth orbit. Villadei currently serves in the Italian Air Force and as head of the Italian Air Force's representative office in the United States. He has completed cosmonaut training as a space engineer, participated in multiple analog training missions, and flown a variety of aircraft and missions as an active flight engineer in the Italian Air Force. This mission is significant for Italy in that it commemorates the 100th year since the founding of the Italian Air Force.
And our third crew member for today's mission is Mission Specialist Alper Izirace. Through this mission, Alper becomes the first Turkish astronaut to go to space. With 15 years of experience across a myriad of aircraft for the Turkish Air Force, Izirace got his start in the Air Force Academy in Istanbul, Turkey, and earned a master's degree from the U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology. He then flew as a commercial airline captain for several years before returning to duty in the Turkish Air Force. And on a further note, this mission marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Turkey.
And finally, we have mission specialist Marcus Want, a lieutenant colonel in the Swedish Air Force. He flew 9 years as a fighter pilot and graduated from the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School at the top of his class. In November of 2022, Marcus was selected by the European Space Agency, or ESA, as an astronaut reserve. However, with the AX-3 mission, he becomes the first project astronaut in ESA's history, a new designation in their ranks. In just a few short hours, he'll be only the second ESA astronaut of Swedish nationality to ever go to the International Space Station, a milestone marked in a year of jubilee as the 500th anniversary of the founding of the country of Sweden.
So as you can see there, this crew has an immense amount of training behind them, both individually and as a team. They bring years and years of experience and preparation to this mission, and together they make up that first all-European crew, each proudly representing their respective nations. Missions like AX-3 help expand that path to low Earth orbit and open up the doors to others to follow. So this crew is prepared, they're now strapped in and ready, so let's recap how they got to this point. Crew first started their day with ending their pre-flight quarantine phase. They took a flight to KSC, they got to see their vehicle as they flew in to the launch landing facility at Kennedy Space Center, and at that point they arrived to be able to say goodbye to their friends and family and wave to them before getting handed over to SpaceX for the rest of their day.
At T-minus 4 hours, we had the weather briefing. Actually, there we can see the first view of the crew as they exited the Falcon support building. That's about a half-mile down the road from the launch pad. I love this part where they get a little wave. They then got into the Teslas, which transported them up, like I said, about a half-mile to the launch pad. Of course, they're physically fit. They could walk it, but we want to make sure they stay cool and comfortable. So these are the Teslas arriving to the launch pad. And one of my, oh, this is a great view here of the crew. Just look at that calm, that patience. I feel like if that were me, I would just be busting with excitement.
Yeah, well, they are.
And then they get out of the Teslas. And then, you know, one of my favorite moments for whenever we launch astronauts from Pad 39A is coming up. It's really, we should come up with it like this astronaut lean back, something where this excitement of seeing their spaceship for the first time on launch day. Of course, they have seen Dragon, they've seen Falcon before.
And now at this point, we can see crew walking down. There you can see Marcus Want and Alper Izarace. They're giving a thumbs up. They are excited to be on this flight today, and we're excited to have them.
All right, so as we saw, actually that view right there, the crew, they are already in their chairs, they're strapped in. They are still, the closeout team on the exterior, still working through the side hatch closure. But coming up next, we will have, actually you can see that closeout team there. So this involves closing the hatch, inflating the seal around the hatch to make sure that the pressure is good, and then they hold that pressure there to make sure there's no decay or leaking from that side hatch seal. Once we get confirmation that that hatch seal is good, we'll be good to go. After that, we are expecting a post-ingress brief to occur. We'll also have crew access arm, which is where these individuals are standing right now. This is in the crew access arm. As the name suggests, this is what allows the crew to access the Dragon capsule side hatch there, as you see. So we're going to retract that away. Then we'll step into propellant loading, terminal count, and obviously the moment that we're all excitedly anticipating in just under 2 hours from now, liftoff. So with all of that, let's check in with Ronnie for a countdown status update.
Thanks, Kate. I'm Ronnie Farman, a commercial sales manager here at SpaceX. We are currently just about 1 hour and 57 minutes away from launch, and everything looks good for an on-time liftoff later today. As Kate mentioned, the crew did receive a weather briefing just after T-minus 4 hours. As we approach liftoff, our teams are tracking weather all along the ascent and recovery corridors, ensuring that Falcon 9 is ready for launch and that all possible recovery zones are available if needed. We're currently tracking roughly a 20% chance of weather violation today, and the main constraint we're looking at is ground weather at the launch site. We'll keep you posted throughout the countdown as we continue to monitor those environments. But at Pad 39A, which you've got a view of on your screen, our teams are hard at work, Falcon 9 is powered up, engine checkouts were performed overnight, and the pressurization of the gas storage tanks were completed earlier today, around T-minus 6 hours. Just a few minutes ago, Falcon began its final checks for launch, including a communication check with the crew, which should be coming up here shortly. At T-minus 45 minutes, our launch director will poll the team for propellant loading, and if we're go, propellant load will begin at T-minus 35 minutes. Now, as with all of our launches to the International Space Station, we have an instantaneous launch window, which today is at 4:49 p.m. Eastern. The reason we need a specific time is because Dragon is basically trying to catch up to the ISS, which as we speak is orbiting the Earth at roughly 17,500 miles per hour. That means we have to deliver Dragon to the correct orbit, and we also need to time its trajectory relative to the orbiting laboratory so that they are both in the same place in orbit at the same time. A precise liftoff is crucial for achieving that timely rendezvous between Dragon and the space station. If, of course, for any reason we are not able to launch today, our next opportunity will be at 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. That's the latest update for now, and I'll check in again as we get closer to liftoff. Back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Ronnie. Speaking of liftoff, let's take a closer look at the vehicles that will be taking the AX-3 crew to the International Space Station today. At the very top of the vehicle is there at our Dragon spacecraft. This is where the crew is currently sitting and will spend their 32-hour flight to the International Space Station. This marks our 12th overall human spaceflight mission in the last 4 years, and in this time, Dragon has flown 38 people to orbit and back, plus the additional 4 NASA Crew 7 members that are still on orbit at the space station. Dragon and the AX-3 crew will be delivered to orbit today by the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, which provides 1.7 million pounds of thrust there on its first stage thanks to the 9 Merlin M1D engines. Named after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, the number 9 refers to the 9 Merlin engines that power Falcon 9's first stage. Since taking flight in 2010, our Falcon 9 rocket has made 298 flights and delivered all sorts of payloads to orbit. After today's launch, the first stage will return to SpaceX's Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, which you see a live view of that there on the right-hand side of your screen. It's about 9 miles as the crow flies from Pad 39A. Fun fact, this is actually the same landing zone where Falcon 9 made its first successful landing attempt back in 2015. So if it looks familiar, that's why. Since then, we have continued to recover and refly our first stage boosters, performing 235 repeat flights in total. Below the Dragon is the Falcon 9 second stage. Its job today is to secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters. Reusability is the key to making spaceflight more routine and ultimately what will enable humans to become multiplanetary. Both the first stage booster and the Dragon spacecraft that you see there will be that are flying today, they're both flight proven. The first stage has supported 4 previous missions, while this Dragon capsule has supported 2 previous missions.
That's right, Kate. In fact, the AX-2 crew that flew in May 2023 launched on this same first stage
Dragon,
booster.
SpaceX, back with you with some good news. Good side hatch leak check.
Copy all. Thanks, Jake.
All right, good news there. We got confirmation that that leak check was good, so the side hatch is now closed.
Excellent.
And it will remain closed until the crew comes back to Earth in about 2 weeks.
Fantastic. All right, well, still looking at that view there. As we mentioned, the AX-2 crew that flew in May 2023 launched on this exact same booster and flew the second flight of this Dragon capsule. So maybe when we get some views inside the cabin, we'll get to see an AX-2 mission patch in there later.
As for the maiden flight, that was with NASA's Crew 4. And as the first crew to fly in this capsule, they had the honor of naming it, which is pretty cool because once a spacecraft is named, it will continue to go by that name for all future flights. Anyway, they chose the name Freedom. Crew 4 Commander Kjell Lindgren said that the name was chosen because it celebrates a fundamental human right and the industry and innovation that emanate from the unencumbered human spirit. The name also honors Freedom 7, which of course is the space capsule used by Alan Shepard's Mercury Redstone 3, the first U.S. human spaceflight mission, which took place on May 5th, 1961.
Yeah, Kate, I love that. On that note, right, with Alper on board, Turkey is taking their first step into human spaceflight on a capsule named after one that first carried the United States into space. It feels like such a poignant underscore to this historic event for the people of Turkey.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of Alper, let's talk about the training and that he and all the rest of the AX-3 crew have completed in order to be prepared for this mission. As you might imagine, astronaut training is extensive, from the training that is specific to each crew member's role to learning SpaceX protocols, ISS systems, and preparing for the science and outreach activities that they'll be conducting in space. Private astronaut training is rigorous. Altogether, the AX-3 crew spent about 35 days training inside Dragon. To prepare them for flight, our teams at SpaceX spent the last several months teaching the crew about orbital mechanics and how to live in microgravity. We also used our Dragon training capsules to run simulations of Ascent, ISS Rendezvous, and reentry. The training program includes nearly 100 different lessons covering all aspects of the flight. The team also spent time at the launch pad, in our suit-up room, and working through emergency procedures that would be necessary in the unlikely event of a pad abort scenario.
Right, and beyond these efforts to get to and from station, this crew also spent months training for life on orbit. Living and working in microgravity presents its own set of unique challenges, and skill-specific training flows and simulations help ensure that when crew crosses that hatch, that they're ready to maximize their time on orbit and accomplish their mission objectives. So not only did they need to be certified by instructors at NASA, JAXA, ESA, and Axiom Space, but they also needed to train with the Axiom Space operations team, who will help them conduct their on-orbit events. Ultimately, this team supports crew 24/7 for the duration of their mission. And in order to best facilitate this level of coordination, Axiom Space has leaned on the lessons learned of those who have flown before and built a team that is capable of tailoring a mission to the specific goals of our customers. As we know, every mission is unique. For AX-3, the Italian Air Force, the Turkish Space Agency, and ESA each have their own specific mission objectives for their respective crew members, and together, we are ready to ensure that they meet those goals. Here's a look at what it takes to pull off all the training and rehearsals together to facilitate a successful Axiom mission.
The intention is to open access to space. What we're built for is to do that.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Axiom Space's AX-3 mission. T-minus 1 hour, 49 minutes, 45 seconds, and counting till launch. They're playing through a lovely video with some copyrighted music, so we're going to take some time to answer your guys' comments and questions. You can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad. Make sure you take a moment and engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage here on the launch pad as we continue through our countdown here today. Today's Falcon 9 booster is a repeat flyer, booster 1080, flying for its 5th time, and today's vehicle, as they said earlier, was Crew Dragon Freedom, also known as C212, flying for its 3rd time. Its last flight was 242 days ago. For the booster, it last flew 89 days ago. So you're seeing a little bit of a longer turnaround time on both of those, but that's pretty normal for crew launches, as we really only see a crew launch once every 3 to 6 months, depending if we have a private mission or not. I was down there last summer for the launch of AX-2. Amazing opportunity, so I want to give a big shout out to the entire Axiom Space team. They've been always amazing to work with. We do have some of our rocket chasers down on site and off of site. Gavin is currently boarding a ship heading out to the edge of the exclusion zone to hopefully, fingers crossed, weather goes well, and the seas are calm, capture booster landing, so make sure you stay tuned for that on our social media. I know we've got Joe and I believe a couple others out at the press site. Joe has set up some remotes as well, so hopefully those will turn out amazing. It's always a risk. You set up a camera and leave it, and those cameras have been set up since yesterday because of the scrub. So deploying gear for long periods of time and hoping that it will hold out. You're seeing on your screen there, they're talking about Axiom Station. This is Axiom's private space station that is currently in development that will be built as an attachment and an extension of the International Space Station at first, and then will separate and become its own independent station before the International Space Station is retired. And there are some amazing elements of that, including that new cupola, which rather than just one side being glass, the entire capsule is glass. And it's going to be really exciting to start seeing those capsules launch over the next couple of years. Catching up on the chat and your guys' questions, you can send those in by tagging us at the launch pad. Jason, are they doing a spacewalk on this mission? I do not believe that is on the schedule. The private astronaut scheduling spacewalks is pretty tight, because it's not just, oh, I want to go outside. It is something that they have to prepare for. There's a prep period on board, changing their oxygen levels in a cabin and different things like that. So definitely something to keep an eye on it. I do also want to mention, I'll talk a little bit more about it and then we'll listen back in, but I wanted to mention that an incredible movie, ISS from Bleecker Street, is coming out. This isn't sponsored. They didn't ask us to do this, but I do want to say thank you to Bleecker Street for providing us an early look at at the new movie ISS that's coming out later today in the US, in Canada, I believe some viewings in Europe as well. It dives into the story of what would happen when World War III breaks out on Earth on board the International Space Station. And it's a really interesting story, very close to reality, asking those questions that many have asked over the last couple of years. So definitely, if you can, check that out, support it. It's a great movie, and we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. T-minus 1 hour, 46 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting till launch. We are looking at a video there talking about the AX-3 pilot. Today's mission, an exciting mission, as it is the first all-European commercial crew mission. Now, yes, Michael is American as well, but he flies 2 flags on his suit, so he does have that second European flag on there. So really exciting to see Europe start to expand its space program. We also have a first-time flyer and a first time for a whole new country flying as well. So we're seeing Axiom Space really helps with SpaceX push this envelope forward of having new people fly more frequently and from more countries as well. Alpha X is asking, why is Peregrine 1 landing? So if you are following along, we do have our second tracker up and running. That is where you can follow along. We are now an estimated 55 minutes till re-entry of Peregrine. Peregrine is Astrobotic's lunar lander that launched on the first ever Vulcan flight. Unfortunately, it did suffer an anomaly during its first day and lost pretty much all of its propellant. Amazingly enough, the Astrobotic team, first, they need a shout out of how transparent they have been with this. They've provided 21 updates in only 10 days. That is incredible. A lot of detail, pretty quickly telling what's going on, what they're working on, and even more incredibly is what they were able to do with a propellant leak. This is very much a successful failure mission. They were able to conduct, I want to get the number right, I want to say it's like 36 small burns with the engines with a leaky tank to be able to modify the orbit to put Peregrine to splash down not on Australia, not on New Zealand, but into the ocean, and for it to have a re-entry track that doesn't put anyone else at risk. So to be able to find a way to do that when you have no pressure in your lines to fire those engines is pretty incredible, especially for a first ever time they're flying their lander. Unfortunately, not going to make it to the moon this time, and those payloads will be lost into the ocean, but it has been now online for over 10 days. They have powered up almost everything on board. Things have been sending back experiments and research as much as they can while they have been continuing to navigate this, kind of successful failure of the Peregrine. But unfortunately, its mission will come to an end over the next couple of hours, splashing down just to the east of Australia, north of New Zealand, by the Great Barrier Reef. And but Astrobotic has pledged that they'll learn from this and get ready for their second lander, Griffin, which will be carrying NASA's Viper mission to the lunar surface late this year, early next year, some point. So we wish them all the best. T-minus 1 hour, 43 minutes, 25 seconds, and counting till launch. Let's listen back in to Axiom Space Mission Control. Keep sending in your questions in the chat and stay with us as we count down to launch of AX-3.
And Axiom Space goes so far. We've been partners for a long time. Thales Alenia Space is building our shells for the Axiom Station modules. Tell me a little bit about why this mission is happening now and what you're looking forward to in the success.
Yes, thank you. Very nice to be here. The paradigm has changed. The reason for what we access the space today is not the same that was in the past. As a Ministry of Defense in Italy, and especially the Italian Air Force, more than 15 years ago, we started to take care of what is the human space flight, especially we had the Italian Air Force involved in what is the research in space. So this process comes back from a long time, and after that, a few years later, we did an agreement with the Italian Space Agency, and it was at that point that we were looking to, after the 2011, with the Space Shuttle retirement, we were looking at what was the future. So the ideas we had back at that time proved to be really innovative today.
That's great that you're taking advantage of these opportunities. What are the goals for space right now? What are the Italian goals in space?
The Italian goals, the Ministry of Defense or the Air Force are the same as the government goals. What we do, we not only are looking at the research part, that for sure is one of our priority. As you know, AX-3 mission as a big part of the experiments are brought by Italy. Also, what we are trying to do here is to having the defense, in this particular case, leading not only the enterprises in Italy to give them an opportunity to be part of the space economy, but also other government organizations. So with us, for example, the Italian Space Agency is our big partner for research, and not only that, also very small business and the largest business we have in Italy.
Research and the research portfolio that the Italians are doing, that Walter is focused on for this mission, is so impressive. What does it mean for the research community to have that kind of focus during this 14-day mission?
You know, it's not easy to take research to space, so we are really proud to give the opportunity to big part of Italy, not only, like I said, not only the enterprises, and is not only, in this case, the Ministry of Defense. Walter, for sure, is an Italian Air Force guy, so he's in the Ministry of Defense. With us, a lot of other government agencies have been working with us. All together for the research that Walter will be executing in the next day. Let me mention a few of those, the principals that work with us. For example, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Food Sovereignty and Forestry. Also the Ministry of Enterprises and Made in Italy was part among our partnerships. And like I said, also for the research part, we have been working close together with the Italian Space Agency.
That's wonderful. And he, Walter brings that focus of a pilot now to the research that he's going to be doing in low Earth orbit. Congratulations on this milestone in your history, celebrating the years of the Italian Air Force. This is an exciting time. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the entire Italian contingent for celebrating with us. Just a couple of moments, we'll be really celebrating.
Thank you, and go Walter and go AX-3.
Thank you so much. Stay right there. We're going to now turn over to meet some folks over on Marcus's team. Our next crew member to highlight is the first ESA project astronaut in history. You can see how Marcus was selected for this mission. He doesn't do anything halfway. When he goes after something, he's all in. And right now, his sights are set on space.
T-minus 1 hour, 38 minutes, 53 seconds, and counting till launch of AX-3, the third private Axiom Space crew mission to the International Space Station. We're catching up on the chat and some of your guys' questions. You can keep sending those in the chat. Just make sure you're tagging us at the launch pad so we are able to see those. Mike's Garage asking, will there be any camera coverage of the re-entry? Not that's planned. We're hoping maybe that we see some videos come out of Australia or New Zealand of re-entry. We kind of hope we don't, because then it would mean it's lower than where we are, because we don't want it to hit any land, but it would also be quite incredible to see Peregrine's kind of end after we saw it launch and on this incredible journey. But at this time there's no planned coverage for that. We're just counting down to that estimated point of re-entry, and once we have confirmation of re-entry, we will bring that to you over on that live tracker. Catching up also on your other questions here. Redneck, I live in North Queensland. Should I be looking northeast? So if you go over to our secondary tracker, we actually have a region marked out from Astrobotic where you can see the re-entry is. It is kind of perfectly, if you divide Australia north and south, kind of perfectly in the middle, but it is off the coast. So depending where you are specifically, that's where you're going to be wanting to look to the east, and it should be coming up and over towards towards that area. And if you do happen to get footage, make sure you send it to us over on our Discord, which is free to join. That's where our community hangs out for launch watch parties and in between launches. I'll be jumping over into our live comms for a little bit of a watch party while we count down the last 90 minutes to launch. But join us over on our Discord. It's free to join. We'd love to see you over there. But if you do happen to be a TLP member, you can also hit that join button down below if you're not and become one. And that's where you get early video access, behind the scenes access, and more. And we would love to have your support as we continue our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we do believe that space is better together. If you're interested in joining the TLP crew as a rocket chaser, not only on the Space Coast, but somewhere around the world, there's lots of launch sites that we're working to cover, or as part of our TLP news team, we would love to have you. You can send us an email or a message on X or in Discord, and we'd love to connect with you as we work to prepare to launch an all-new website and app this year. We're working to expand that team, so a little bit of time till that's ready, and once it's ready, we can't wait to show that to you. Members, you're going to get early access, of course, to give your feedback as we work to develop that all-new website, and we're super excited to bring that to you over the next couple of months. While we wait for this video to wrap up, I do want to make a quick kind of programming note as well. I am heading down to the Space Coast on Saturday. At this time, we only have a couple of launches scheduled while I'll be down, but for a few of those days, I will be technically off the grid, as I will be on a ship out at sea. But we are working to try to do a first to bring live launch coverage from on board the ship via Starlink. So we're going to do our best to bring you that live coverage from on board, but just in case we don't, you'll understand why, but we hope you'll join us as we further try to show what Starlink can do by bringing us live coverage access on board a ship hundreds of miles offshore, covering a launch on the other side of the world. So super excited to be trying that out, and hopefully we'll get a Starlink launch in the middle that might actually fly over the ship. Come on, SpaceX. Just one launch. You launch so many times. We just need one while we're under the path. But let's listen back into Axiom Mission Control and the Axiom team as we count down 1 hour, 35 minutes, 15 seconds and counting till launch.
More space activities, it allows us to serve ultimately more member states of the European Space Agency.
So as a reserve astronaut, Marcus had like a 2-year window, right? This is very fast to be going up into space. What was that timeline like for ESA and for Marcus?
So first, let's recall, he has been selected in November 2022. We are now in January 24.
It hasn't even been 2 years, right?
Space Center. It's 1 year and 3 months.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. I think it shows that we can really be fast. We can really be fast when we want. I should also thank all the actors who made it happen, because it really required an alignment of the planets, literally. Let me first start by thanking Sweden, who took the decision to finance this mission. Let me thank industry, who made it happen, Axiom notably, but ultimately also my team, because there is also a big scientific program behind the mission of Marcus.
Yes.
And his training for him, and it was a game changer, and I'm happy to be here today.
Well, let's talk about that game-changing research. He has 14 days on this mission, very aggressive portfolio that he's going to be chasing to make sure that he's doing all that. Tell us some about those goals, some of those projects he's working on, and what ESA's looking forward to when he comes back.
So first and above all, our main objective is to bring forward science very clearly. We have multiple disciplines here. It starts, for example, with bone health. To give you one example, it goes then over to technology demonstrators. So we really cover our different disciplines: human physiology, biology, material science, up to techno demonstration. So I think this is really a very nice program. Over 20 experiments, which will be done in less than 14 days. So that's really amazing. And on top of that, let's also not forget the second objective, which is about education, which is about outreach. And Marcus will do here a great job. And
Marcus has such enthusiasm and such energy. So, of course, people who are going to be tuning in for that educational outreach will be, of course, inspired by his journey and by the work that you're all doing. What is the next step for ESA? Where are you going next in this private astronaut missions and commercial projects?
So first above all, Marcus is already inspirational for all our colleagues, for people who work with him before he have even launched to space, and it will, of course, touch much more future generations when he comes back and can share with us his real experience in space. That's really the big difference. And then in terms of commercial activities, we are really stepping up significantly our work at the European Space Agency. We have commercial programs nearly in all domains we work today. In exploration, we definitely want to have more commercial actors when it comes also to our transport delivery missions. We want to have more commercial actors when it comes also to human space flight activities, for sure. And in this context, we will also have more project astronauts in the future, and I'm happy to come back here to Kennedy Space Center.
So we're excited for Huygen and Moonen, who are going to be joined together out in low Earth orbit on the ISS. Thank you so much to ESA for being such a wonderful partner with Axiom Space, doing wonderful work together. I hope that this is the start of a wonderful relationship that we take into the future.
Thank you. Looking forward.
We have some more crew members to introduce you to. Our next crew member is from the country of Turkey. We want to highlight the ambitions of this mission and the future in space for the country of Turkey. Here's more on Alper's inspired and unexpected adventure leading to low Earth orbit.
T-minus 1 hour, 31 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting till launch. They're playing through a video here of Turkey, the first ever astronaut flying. A milestone here as another country reaches up into space for the first time. And this is a big part of what Axiom's mission is to be able to help these other countries be able to fly their first ever astronauts to low Earth orbit, to the International Space Station, and more. And that's a big reason why Axiom Station will be so important, is they'll be able to have more people go up for longer periods of time. These visits to the International Space Station are incredibly expensive. We did a video on that a couple of years ago breaking it down, and you were talking tens of millions of dollars for these short stays on top of the cost of your rocket flight, which is about $55 million. So it's definitely a big opportunity for these countries to be able to come in here. But we're glad to be here. We're catching up on the chat. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat. We will work on answering those live here as we continue through the countdown. Carl Witzman, what is the relationship between SpaceX and Axiom? Is Axiom a media company? I've never heard of them. Awesome question there, Carl. Thanks for sending that in. So Axiom Space is a private space, I guess in a word, agency in the sense. They do astronaut training. So what Axiom buys seats on other companies' rockets to space. Then they book space on the International Space Station. But they are also now building their own space station. So their space station, they'll start building, I believe it's this year, next year. They'll build it onto the ISS. They'll build on a few modules over a number of years, and then they'll separate and attach the final modules, and they will be their own independent station when the ISS retires. So in a way, I guess they're kind of like a brokerage right now sort of thing, but they're working to expand to do other stuff. They're also working on spacesuits for NASA. They're working on a bunch of other stuff. So they kind of got their hands in many different jars right now of opportunities, and they're definitely going to be a name that we see. SpaceX and Axiom Space are going to be two names that we see really together a lot, but going into this kind of next generation, we're going to see a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how they morph. There hasn't really been a company like them before buying these commercial missions. These are not NASA missions. These aren't even SpaceX missions. They're just buying the use of the rocket. SpaceX launches it, but they have to go through all the training. They have to work with NASA to get all the astronauts trained for the NASA training, to be able to be on board the space station, and stuff. So lots to come from Axiom Space. It's not a huge team either. I know when we were there for AX-2, I was amazed that the entire media team was there, and it was like 4 or 5 people. And they did an incredible job, but they were launching people to space and had a very small media program because they're not very many years old. So, but they did an incredible job, and I'm sure they're doing so as well out there today. We're going to listen in to hear a little bit more from Turkey, and we'll be back answering more of your guys' questions during the next video. Stay with us.
Our nation's advancement in science and technology it's the first manned space mission of our country, and I think that this is not only a significant milestone in the history of our country, but also a very strong source of inspiration for Turkish children and youth.
Now, the country of Turkey has been involved in human spaceflight in the research category for over 30 years. You've been doing all this aggressive research in space and low Earth orbit. Tell me about the research that Alper is going to be continuing and what kind of portfolio of opportunities that you're going to be working on over the next 14 days.
Actually, as Turkey, we are very experienced in space technologies. We are developing and manufacturing our own satellites, our own observation, and also communication satellites. And also we can develop and produce the rockets to reach the space. But when it comes to manned space missions, it's now the very first time for us. And this mission will be also a scientific mission. Alper Gezeravcı will conduct 13 different scientific experiments at ISS. All experiments are prepared by Turkish scientists, and we think that those scientific experiments will serve the scientific literature in the world. And some of them are on biology and genetics, and some of them are also on material science, but all of them are very innovative, and we will wait for the results of those scientific studies very soon.
That's the wonderful thing about these short duration missions, is that research comes back immediately for all the data to be processed. We're going to be talking a little bit more with Lucy Lowe, our chief scientist, in a couple of minutes about the entire portfolio of this mission. It's exciting work, and I can't wait to get into it. So you talked a little bit about the 30-year history. We talked about the research that's been ongoing. Talk to me about what the future of human space exploration looks like for the country of Turkey.
Actually, as Turkey, we are working on the national space program, and we have very assertive targets for next 10 years on space technologies. This is a manned space mission, but we also have some unmanned space missions. We aim to reach the moon with a space system developed and again manufactured by Turkish scientists and engineers. And after this mission, we will send the second Turkish astronaut for a suborbit flight, and then we hope that we will have many different manned missions next year.
Well, you're doing wonderful work. You've accomplished so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, Alper, the entire country along with us. I cannot wait for this historic moment for all of these wonderful countries and partners. Thank you so much, and go AX-3 and go to the country of Turkey. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, and we thank you all and all partners in this historic mission. Indeed,
indeed. We have one more crew member to introduce you to, and that is our commander. Michael Lopez Alegria is the commander of this historic AX-3 spaceflight mission. He is an icon, and we are proud to have him leading the way.
And now playing through a little bit of a video about today's commander flying for, I believe, his 5th mission. He flew on shuttle. He flew as part of AX-1. It's the first private commercial commander with Axiom Space. Amazing to see his story continue, helping usher in this new era. He also works with Axiom Space year-round in other positions as well. So not only is he an astronaut, he is helping push forward the future of commercial space industry, which is awesome to see some of these retired NASA astronauts expand into the commercial sector to help us kind of enter this new era as well. As I say, you can keep sending in those questions in the chat. We're catching up on them. I saw some people asking how much snow do we have. I know many people were wondering how we've gone through. We've got the lights back on. We're out of that power warning, grid failure warning for the last couple of days. Don't have a lot of snow, but it was definitely really, really cold. But we're back to our normal cold weather for the winter, which is manageable, but excited to get down to Florida in a couple of days and get some warmth after that bitter week and a half that there was. Frostbite, it's no joke. So always some fun adventures up here in the winter. If you haven't yet, join us over on our Discord. That's where our community's hanging out. We've got Amy, Elias, and Windbreaker hanging out in live comms, doing a little bit of a launch party there. You're welcome to join us. as well as just hanging out in the Discord. It's our community's place to hang out in between missions and to kind of talk about everything space. Of course, there's always lots to talk about Starship, so we got a Starship chat in there as well, and try to hang out in there as much as I can during off hours as well, hanging out with our community, because we only get to do this because of your guys' generous support and watching, liking, sharing, or actually being a member, and we really do appreciate your guys' support. I know some people are asking, are we saying Turkey wrong or differently? That is how Axiom Space is saying it, and I believe that's how they've been asked to say it. So I believe that's how we're moving forward with saying that. There are many countries around the world that there is a English way that it has been said for years or decades, but is not actually a perfect translation of what it is in their native language. So we're seeing that change with some of these countries as well. Carl said, just glad that you've warmed up and have the lights on. Me too. Star Striker, how do you think the launch will go? We're watching the weather. 80% go for launch here today. The only issue, chance of violation, is due to ground weather at the launch site, so we are keeping an eye on that. I know she's going to be interviewing someone here probably in just a moment, but I'm going to very quickly bring up here, and I will try to do this quickly. Taking a look at the live weather conditions on the Space Coast. We've been monitoring these. Not a lot of weather actually on the radar itself, but keeping an eye on that. There is some over in the Orlando area moving towards the Space Coast, so we are keeping an eye on that, as they can fly in rain, but they cannot fly when there is a risk of lightning, and rockets do cause the creation of lightning. They can if the conditions are right. So we like to see that the radar is dying right there at Titusville and not crossing the river to the launch site. That's what we want to keep it doing as we continue through the count here this morning for today's flight. We've been keeping a close eye on it, looking at lightning strikes. We can see there those have been staying offshore, so that's good. We are launching a north trajectory, and that's the board we wanted to see. All green across the board. No lightning watches, lightning warnings, and no wind warnings, which is really great to see. Sometimes we see that steady state warning, and that's one that we have to watch, but everything is clear today. Pulling back up the NASA feeds, you're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where Crew Dragon C212, also named Freedom, is on board Falcon 9 Booster 1080, ready to go for its 5th flight. You're looking over the shoulder of the commander and pilot as they go through the final checkouts. 1 hour, 20 minutes, and counting till launch. Propellant load has not begun. This is a SpaceX rocket, so that loading begins quite a bit later into flight. We're going to have the launch crew access arm, rotate away. 42 minutes remaining in the countdown, followed by the arming of the Dragon escape system at 39 minutes. That's when we'll get that final go, no go in those few minutes there for propellant loading. And then after that, we will have the propellant load on booster and second stage begin. As we continue through the count, 1 hour, 19 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. Let's listen back into SpaceX and Axiom Mission Control.
Them individually. It's about the team and what they represent for their countries and what they're doing on orbit. So while they're looking at that work doing on orbit, we know that a lot of that is training for their research, right? That really puts into sharp focus just what all this preparation has been for. Training the crew to conduct their research efforts is one piece of this puzzle. But another aspect to a successful spaceflight mission is the effort behind the scenes. Preparing the research payloads, writing the procedures, and coordinating all of the logistics for that research to be loaded and flown to space. To be successful, that entire effort requires an army of dedicated and talented team members. For organizations considering a research study in microgravity, or for entities looking to demonstrate a new capability off-planet, Axiom Space is built to do just that.
We're a company that's focused not just on flying people, but really creating the markets, creating the products, creating the services.
And Axiom Space love their videos with some beautiful music. We're going to keep it on screen for you guys to be able to see that there. Not sure why we transitioned a little weirdly there, but there we go. 1 hour, 18 minutes, 30 seconds and counting here. They're talking a bit about the future of the space station and Axiom Station. I want to say that video, I want to go back there for a moment on my own feed. I believe that was one of the astronauts possibly wearing Vision Pro on the station. I want to take a look back at that while we go through here. I'm watching this live along with you guys, so amazing to see all this new technology coming. We know AX-2 flew with this incredible suit from MIT, a futuristic suit that helps keep all the muscles tight and everything while they were on board to help them have a faster acclimation to zero gravity, but also an even better acclimation back to gravity. Even though they're only gone 10 days, 14 days, they do see that notice. There is another suit flying on board this mission, so it's exciting to see that. That is coming from, I believe it was the country of Turkey, was flying their suit on this mission. So great to see this kind of expansion. I'm just scrolling back here while we do this. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those questions live. Yeah, that was definitely, it might not have been Vision Pro specifically, but that was definitely some sort of a VR type headset, which is really awesome to see them using new technologies on board the space station, and we continue to go. Liam, I'm going to see Tim Peake do a talk this year, and I can't wait. That's awesome, Liam. Definitely take us some, send us some photos. Where is that talk happening? I know he travels around and gives them, so that is awesome. Catching up on the chat, people. Bill's watching from Walla Walla. Can I sign up my son for AX-4? He needs a flight soon. Maybe not AX-4, maybe AX-4D. I'm sure they've got a pretty long list of people that want to fly, but hey, it's not out of the question anymore. We live in an era that you can buy a commercial flight to space, and it's just becoming more and more affordable, and accessible. Right now, yeah, you're still talking about $55 million a seat on Dragon, but that's come down since $90 to $100 million only 10 years ago. So if we keep that going, it is definitely going to be amazing to see. When AX-3 docks to the International Space Station with Crew Dragon Freedom, there will be 2 Dragons on board. Of course, we have Crew 7, I believe, is on station still. It seems like these crews just keep going faster and faster. How are we already at Crew 7 and preparing for Crew 8? As we continue to listen back into SpaceX Mission Control, stay with us right here as we count down 1 hour, 15 minutes, 45 seconds and counting till launch of AX-3.
The Earth. During the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021, which was the world's first all-civilian mission to orbit, the crew conducted research while traveling weightless at over 17,000 miles per hour. On the Inspiration 4 mission, Crew Dragon's cargo capacity was allocated for both crew essentials as well as scientific equipment dedicated to microgravity research and experiments. And the Dragon research continues long after Dragon splashes down. The data and biological samples collected from Inspiration 4's crew members before, during, and after the mission, that will all be accessible through an open data repository or biobank, and that can be accessed for research purposes. While Dragon is responsible for delivering sensitive research and samples, that's just part of the story. For this mission, Dragon is also carrying something for the right-brained hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah, I love that, Kate. You know, it's really easy for us to make this connection between STEM and spaceflight. But over the last few years, we've been seeing a shift, right, from just STEM to also STEAM. And that includes the arts. We're putting more emphasis on those things that are so human. So today's teachers, you know, they have to teach the values of both the importance of arts and engineering, because arts will always have a place in space. It's an essential element of culture, an essential element of exploration.
Absolutely.
So for this mission,
SpaceX, for your awareness, closeout team has departed the crew arm.
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
And with that, Dragon, I've got a post-ingress brief for you. Report ready to copy.
Ready to copy.
Okay, Dragon, we are officially through the hurry up phase, and now we have a little bit of time to wait. Clock is at T-minus 113 and counting. Dragon and Falcon systems continue to look healthy, and vehicles are ready for a launch attempt today. Weather continues to look great, and we'll keep you updated if anything changes. How copy so far?
Very pleased to copy all so far, Jake.
Okay, I do have one item for you looking ahead in the timeline to the first Dragon burn on orbit. That's the phase burn at 22:33 Zulu. I have some info you might want to record. Report ready to copy.
Ready to copy.
Okay. For your awareness, we have a TDRS gap starting at 2225. That's 11 minutes before the phase burn, and it ends at the same time the burn ends. That's 2242. The impact is that we in Hawthorne will not have live data or comms during the burn. That said, pending successful on-orbit Draco checkouts, we will be taking the burn and will rely on onboard vehicle automation to halt the burn if necessary. After the burn, we'll get a data dump and catch back up with the vehicle. It's not unprecedented in our flight history to not have data during the burn, but I'm letting you know. How copy?
Okay, give us a minute here, Jake.
Sure thing, and let me know if you'd like any of that repeated.
Hey, Jake, we all copied the what you've read. I think the only question is we had a little confusion on your math, or maybe it's our math, but the burn start is 2233. The LOS is 2225 to 2242. I thought you said 11 minutes, but either way, we'll come AOS around the end of the burn. You guys will get the data, and then we'll talk about any deltas, correct?
Okay, I understand the confusion. I called burn start 2233. It is actually 2236. That's my mistake, and explains the 11-minute gap then between 25 and 36.
Yep, all clear now. Thanks.
Okay, that's all I had. Any questions from the crew here for the team in Hawthorne?
No questions.
Copy all.
All right, so that was the post-ingress crew briefing. That's the opportunity for SpaceX Core, which is the crew operations and resource engineer, to relay any important information to the crew, as you see seated inside Dragon Freedom. We do this every launch, and that was actually a great example of why we do this and like the structure of those briefs and communication. So
RP1 bleed has started.
Jake Vendel, the SpaceX Core today basically was saying really good news. Everything is looking healthy on both vehicles, Falcon 9 and Dragon, and the weather looks great. Like, that is music to our ears on launch day. He also gave the crew an update on the timeline regarding an expected loss of signal right around the phase burn, which is one of the burns that Dragon performs in order to reach the International Space Station. And you heard Core say how copy, and then crew basically processed that information and said, wait a minute, we have a question, and so I thought that was a really good example of why we do what we do whenever we have these back and forths, because sometimes something gets misread or something is not understood, and it's absolutely critical that we have clear communication to make sure that everybody is on the same page and is expected. So all in all, really good post-ingress brief. Like I said, all music to our ears. So everything is looking good for our liftoff in just under 1 hour and let's see, we're looking at 1 hour, 8 minutes and 45 seconds.
That's a perfect recap, Kate. You know, for something like that, that really emphasizes how we're going to get into the future together, into low Earth orbit and beyond, right? So for Axiom Space, our future is Axiom Station. In the last few years, our team has grown from a few hundred engineers to now over 1,000. Our designs have gone from concept to mock-ups to the machining of flight hardware. So here's how our future is taking shape.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. T-minus 1 hour, 8 minutes, 14 seconds, and counting till launch. Axiom playing another video here talking about their station, which is now well into development. You can see there's real hardware being tested and practiced with as they prepare for launch of that first module to the International Space Station. We wanted to mute there and listen in to them during that kind of conversation between Dragon and Hawthorne, as they said, even on the stream, a very important hearing of what actually is happening and why we have all of these moments in the countdown, and why the astronauts double check everything. You know, they clarified something that was misspoke from mission control. Now, the computers would have done it correctly because we don't fly manually really anymore, but to have that clarification is ultra critical. You're seeing some amazing footage here inside the development area where they are preparing and building these new modules for the Axiom Space Station. The cupola looks so incredible. The scale of this, the size of these windows that'll be on the cupola. We're really going to see this next generation space station, a first ever private space station, go to orbit in just the next couple of years as they continue to expand Axiom Space's reach into low Earth orbit. I saw someone ask, are they using Starlink? They do use Starlink with Dragon. They've been doing some testing with it, but I do not believe that they are currently only using that. I know they've been testing it also with Starship. Obviously, we saw the big Starlink tiles that were on it. So it is something that they're working on. Starlink not fully operational for those, but we know Polaris Dawn's mission, the mission coming up in just a couple of months with Jared Isaacman as commander, it will be. You're now seeing an animation of what that first module will look like being docked to the ISS, and then what the future station will look like. It's quite a large station with a really dramatic modern tower that comes off of it that will have the solar rays above the station rather than on the sides like we've seen with the International Space Station. And this is only the first generation of this. It is very possible that we will see Axiom Station grow in the future. They have had many different parts and announcements. Axiom Station will have the first ever data center on board Axiom Station. They are talking about these private kind of hotel room type areas, and there's a video inside that incredible cupola. The cupola at the top, those windows, just that top ring is what's on the ISS now. But to have this full room of windows is something that has never been in space before, and I can't wait till someone takes a VR camera in there so that we can all put VR on and experience what it truly is like being surrounded by space in that cupola. Definitely pushing forward. 10, 15 years ago, I don't think we ever would have thought we'd have windows, you know, as big as windows we have here on Earth floating around in space, but with technology's advancement, we are able to do so. T-minus 1 hour, 5 minutes, 7 seconds, and counting till launch of AX-3. We're continuing to monitor the weather. We still have green across the board for lightning and wind. 80% go for launch here today, but we'll continue listening in to SpaceX mission control. We are expecting NASA to begin their linked coverage as well as SpaceX here in the next little bit to give us even more updates as we go through the final bit of the count, which is the more exciting part, which is where we have propellant loading and preparation, and that all is set to begin in about 15 minutes time. At T-minus 45 minutes, that's when the SpaceX launch director will verify that they are ready and go for propellant load. Now remember, we are counting down to an instantaneous launch window, which means if we hold at any point, we miss today's launch window if they're not able to pick up that time later in the count. The crew access arm will retract at T-minus 42 minutes, and the launch escape system will then arm Dragon, and that is when propellant load will begin. Let's listen back into SpaceX and Axiom mission control as we count down to launch of AX-3, the first all-European commercial mission to the International Space Station.
For those of you that have recently tuned into our webcast, we are now 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 45 seconds away from the launch of the Axiom 3 crew to the International Space Station. Joining us now from ISS Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center is Courtney Beasley. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi, Kate and John. I'm happy to be joining you guys today, and we are looking forward to launch from Mission Control Houston.
Courtney, we're so happy to have you guys here today. We're happy to be together in this room and talk about this crew. AX-3 is the first, all European crew. This is a historic flight for them. It's a historic flight for Axiom and NASA and SpaceX. This is an incredible group. They've worked diligently, both individually and together, to get to this moment. They're representing, across the four of them, 5 different nations. As we mentioned, they've trained extensively as a team, but now they're ready to be a part of that effective and contributing ISS team.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, Michael Lopez Alegria is the first repeat flyer in the Dragon program history, which...
SpaceX Dragon for cabin temp.
Dragon SpaceX, I think that was for cabin fan. Go ahead.
Actually, Jake, it was for cabin temp, and we're feeling just a little bit on the cool side here, wondering what the options are for warming it up.
Copy. Understood. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
All right, some quick back and forth there with the crew and SpaceX Core, basically just asking to if there's any options to warm up the cabin. They're a little cool. As I was saying, MLA, our commander today, he is our first repeat flyer in the history of the Dragon program, which I guess means that we have to make a frequent flyer member club of some sort.
I think you need to give him a punch card for this, and he's no stranger to Dragon, as we're going to look at now. So the voice you heard there, like Kate just mentioned, Michael Lopez Alegria, or MLA, who is no stranger to human spaceflight. He's actually a dual citizen of the United States and Spain, and AX-3 marks his 6th mission to space, having completed 3 space shuttle flights and a Soyuz mission as a NASA astronaut, prior to commanding AX-1 with Axiom Space. MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks and the cumulative amount of time spent conducting spacewalks. In 2020, he was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, and today, when he's not in low Earth orbit, MLA serves as Axiom Space's chief astronaut.
Our pilot on today's flight, Walter Villaday, is from the Italian Air Force and is taking his inaugural trip to low Earth orbit. Villaday currently serves in the Italian Air Force and as head of the Italian Air Force's representative office in the United States. He has completed cosmonaut training as a space engineer, participated in multiple analog training.
Dragon SpaceX, for a different topic, we are about to send a command to cycle the orbit tank ISO valves to equalize low flow pressure. You should hear it. How copy?
Okay, we copy. We're standing by.
All right, just notification there to the crew.
And Dragon, I've got an update on the cabin temp, and it's not necessarily favorable. There's not much we can do at this point from the ground, especially anticipating the heating that will incur during ascent. I'd like to assess if this is something you think you can ride out for another hour here.
Absolutely, Jake. Just wanted to ask, but we understand what the priority is here.
Copy, Dragon. Yeah, appreciate you asking. Sorry we can't do more in this situation.
Back to Walter. He has completed cosmonaut training as a space engineer, participated in multiple analog training missions, and flown a variety of aircraft and missions as an active flight engineer in the Italian Air Force. This mission is significant for Italy in that it commemorates the 100th year since the founding of the Italian Air Force.
Now, our third crew member for today's mission is Mission Specialist Alper İziraçe. Through this mission, Alper becomes the first Turkish astronaut to go to space. With 15 years of experience across a myriad of aircraft for the Turkish Air Force, İziraçe got his start in the Air Force Academy in Istanbul, Turkey, and earned a master's degree from the U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology. He then flew as a commercial airline captain for several years before returning to duty in the Turkish Air Force. This mission also marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Turkey.
And finally, we have Mission Specialist Marcus Want, a lieutenant colonel in the Swedish Air Force who flew 9 years as a fighter pilot and graduated from the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School at the top of his class. In November of 2022, Marcus was selected by the European Space Agency as an astronaut reserve. However, with this mission, AX-3, he becomes the first project astronaut in ESA's history, a new designation within their ranks. In just a few short hours, he'll be only the second ESA astronaut of Swedish nationality to ever go to the International Space Station, a milestone marked in a year of jubilee as the 500th anniversary of the founding of the country of Sweden. So that is the AX-3 crew. We are now under an hour until liftoff. We're at T-minus 58 minutes and 10 seconds, and they're going to be heading to the International Space Station. All right, and with that, let's check in with NASA's Courtney Beasley.
Thanks, Kate. I'm here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center, where teams staff this room around the clock to monitor the crew and systems aboard the orbiting laboratory. And today, they're ensuring that the station is ready to receive Dragon and the AX-3 crew. Since NASA opened up the space station for commercial activity in 2019, the agency has continued to work with private industry to prepare for the future of low Earth orbit. Now, NASA's long-term goal is to no longer be a provider of low Earth orbit destination, but to be a customer, one of many, purchasing commercially owned and operated services. To ensure this path of tomorrow, we have to work together today. Enabling private astronaut missions on board the space station helps us to refine and mature the processes needed for the future, with NASA astronauts working side by side with private and national astronauts in a new age of science and discovery. And we take this next step together as we continue counting down to launch the AX-3 crew to the International Space Station. Now, it's an incredibly busy time in low Earth orbit and beyond, and NASA wants to scout the moon before returning astronauts. So next month, it will send several science experiments aboard Intuitive Machines' Nova-C lander, which will launch on a Falcon 9 rocket.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. T-minus 56 minutes, 14 seconds, and counting till launch of Axiom Space's AX-3 mission. NASA running through one of their Artemis moon minutes, talking about as they prepare to go back to the moon with crew for the first time. I just had an update from our TLP rocket chaser Gavin. He is out on the ship. He is heading out to the designated zone on the edge of the exclusion zone in preparation for today's launch and landing. Today's booster 1080, going for its 12th flight, I believe it is, but it is going for a landing at landing zone 1. I want to make sure I'm getting that right. No, 5th flight. I was correct. 5 flights. Its previous flight was 89 days ago. It is attempting to land at landing zone 1, so make sure you stay tuned to our social medias and Discord to hopefully see some incredible captures by not only Gavin, but Joe and some of our other rocket chasers across the spaced coast. T-minus 5 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Let's listen back in to Mission Control.
Thank you so much, Courtney. You know, it's such an exciting future we have to look forward to, and it doesn't really feel that far off. You know, every day behind us, all over the country, back in Houston, there's work happening to bring about this vision.
Yeah, that's right. Even as we speak, SpaceX teams are preparing for our upcoming launch of the Intuitive Machines Nova-C lunar lander, known as the IM-1 mission. This will be the first SpaceX-provided launch of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Initiative, a key part of NASA's Artemis lunar exploration efforts. And down at Starbase, Texas, we're continuing to build, test, and fly Starship, the world's most powerful launch vehicle ever developed. It's a fully reusable transportation system that will transform how we access space because it's designed to carry a massive amount of cargo and large numbers of people to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond. We completed 2 flight tests last year, one of them you see here on your screen now, and 2024 is lining up to see even more Starships take flight. We're still in the testing phase, but things like flying rapidly, full system reuse, and on-orbit refilling will be key to building and staffing a viable moon base. And right now, we're gearing up for Test Flight 3, currently targeted for sometime in February. We're also building a second Starbase launch tower, which visualization you see there, and that will further increase Starship's flight opportunities. And I love this. This is so cool looking. It's not that far off in the future. With our Starship Human Landing System, or HLS, we're part of the global team with NASA and companies, including Axiom Space, that will put astronauts back on the moon under the Artemis program. First, we're going to fly, and fly often on flight tests, one of which will be an uncrewed mission all the way to the moon. This will take place before the crewed Artemis 3 mission, which will be the first human expedition of the moon surface since 1972. Also in testing, our engineers are proving out all systems necessary to make a trip to the moon possible, like propulsion, life support, even the elevator that you see here that will take crew and cargo from the Starship hatch down to the lunar surface. It's literally a space elevator.
That's awesome, Kate. And in addition to the launch and landing capabilities that you just mentioned, another essential component of the Artemis program is a spacesuit that is capable of executing a wide array of mission objectives. A spacesuit really is a spaceship. It's just a little smaller and in human form. So, in order to develop a lunar spacesuit that meets all of the objectives for Artemis, Axiom Space is building the Axiom Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or Axiom U, back in Houston, Texas. Our next-generation spacesuit is built to provide greater flexibility and mobility, allowing astronauts to work on the moon in ways that were not possible 50 years ago. We've also put a strong emphasis on modularity, meaning that the Axiom U suits will support a wide range of body sizes and types. From the hand-built soft goods to the life support, advanced avionics, and communication systems, this entire Axiom U system is built with integrity and care from head to toe. And I'm truly honored to say that I'm a small part of that amazing team. Leveraging years of this human spaceflight experience and partnering with numerous industry leaders, Axiom Space is ensuring that the Axiom U allows astronauts to succeed on Artemis and beyond.
There's so much to look forward to with this groundswell of focus on the moon. It's just incredible that humans are finally going back to the moon, and the efforts of SpaceX and Axiom get to play a vital role in that.
I know. I love that we get to be a part of this in our generation, right? Like, this is what commercialization of space looks like. It takes cooperation, it takes coordination, and a lot of dedication. And AX-3 is a critical step in demonstrating those core components.
Absolutely. Now, for those that have just recently joined, we are now about 51.5 minutes away from launch. The clock continues to count down to the launch of AX-3. So let's share some of the highlights of the day that got us to where we are now.
Exactly. So crew wrapped up their quarantine phase, taking a flight from their quarantine facility at Kennedy over to Kennedy Space Center. You can see them there on the helicopter as they think about their flight and pass over the Cape. And what I think is really cool about this is they get to see their vehicle from this perspective too as they come in, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, you know, they're going to touch down, they're thinking about their mission, and then they get to wave to their families. They get to see, they haven't seen them in so long. They get to wave to them, have a final goodbye. And at this point, this is where we really hand over to SpaceX to complete the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, look at those smiles. Everyone is excited, as they should be.
Yeah.
So after they arrive and after they're handed over to the crew, they go through a series of events such as putting their suits on. Obviously, they take a ride up to, oh, here we can see there. This is the moment where they walked out of the Falcon support building. This is where our SpaceX suit-up room is located. They stand here, do another wave. Really, this was the first opportunity that we got to see the crew in their suits today. Got in those Teslas and drove up to the launch pad, which is about roughly a half mile away from where those doors are. I'm always curious what music they're listening to during this ride. You can see here that they are pulling up to the launch pad. 2 Teslas. We have the crew split in half there with some closeout team members that obviously help support them. We lovingly refer to them as the ninjas because we see them all around assisting the crew in things like getting into or ingressing the capsule. So here, this is one of my favorite moments of launch day when they get to see their rocket up close. And man, just thinking about the fire that's going to come out at the bottom there in just under an hour.
Yeah, and at this point you can see our commander and our pilot walking down, as well as Marcus and Alper to their Dragon capsule before they get in.
Yeah, so at this point in time, that side hatch is closed. We had the post-ingress crew briefing, and we heard great news. We heard that the weather is looking good. I think the exact words were, weather is great, and that everything is healthy. So both Falcon 9 and Dragon vehicles are ready to go to space, just like the crew.
Excellent recap, Kate. All right, well, it's important to remember that this crew has not walked this path to flight alone. Earlier today, they waved to their friends and family before suiting up, as we just saw, but that wasn't the first round of cheers that their families had for them.
To the whole crew of Axiom, mission number 3. This is the soft flight test team that would like to wish you a safe and fantastic journey up to the International Space Station.
Hello from Turkey.
Have a safe space flight.
Good luck. buon viaggio. Siamo con te, amore. Siamo tanto orgogliosi di te, papà. Ti vogliamo bene. Ciao.
Greetings, Commander Mike and AX-3 crew from your ASTM family here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Your dedication to exploration and discovery inspires us all.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. A couple of events happening there. We are preparing for that final go for propellant load, but just a minute ago, the Peregrine lunar lander was set to make re-entry over Australia. We are waiting for an update from Astrobotic as such, and we're continuing to monitor that situation as Peregrine 1's mission, Astrobotic, and the first U.S. commercial lunar lander's mission set to have now actually concluded its mission by re-entering the Earth's atmosphere after what many are calling an incredibly successful failure and approving of that. If you're just joining us though, T-minus 47 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting till the launch of SpaceX Axiom Space Crew 3. NASA's a partner because they're going to the International Space Station, but this is an entirely commercial mission between two private entities. And we're glad to have you joining us here. If you guys have questions, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. You're seeing these celebratory send-off videos from the crews, their family, their friends from around the world as we count down to launch of AX-3. And this is how you know we're getting very, very close to that moment of liftoff there. You can see even previous Axiom Space crew talking to them. There's the previous pilot and with John. We had an incredible conversation with John. If you haven't seen that interview, definitely check it out. If you're just joining us though, take a moment, engage that like button, subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. We'll be following Axiom 3 all the way. Let's have them back in to SpaceX Axiom Space, mission control, and hosts.
Space really is for everyone, including everyone that loves the people going to space.
And operators on countdown. Polling is complete. Both Dragon and Falcon teams have pulled go for launch escape arm, propellant load, and launch. Stand by for abort instructions. T-minus 45 minutes. Both control rooms go into lockdown and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators are to remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbit insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD, and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. Launch control at this time. You may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Launch control copies, proceeding with arming crew arm for movement.
Well, there you heard it. We are go to proceed with propellant load in just under 10 minutes.
Crew arm retract has started.
And we are beginning to retract that crew access arm. Both the Falcon 9 and Dragon are go for launch. Wow, great view of that on your screen right now. And in a moment, we should hear some additional directions from our launch director to the team. Now, of course, the crew is currently on board, again, with that great view of the crew access arm moving away from Dragon. They're at historic Launch Pad 39A. So now the range continues to be go for launch, and we're monitoring the clearance area around the launch pad, as well as air and sea space around the flight corridor. Even though we have been keeping an eye on some possible storm cells near the launch site, the conditions are predicted to be acceptable for launch. Downrange landing zones, if needed for an escape, are also go. Now, the full retraction of that crew access arm is expected to take about 2 minutes and will be followed almost immediately with the arming of the launch escape system.
Crew arm retraction is complete.
There's confirmation that that's complete. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Ronnie. As we heard, the crew access arm is now moved out of the way. It is in its launch configuration. This is one of the last physical changes to the pad that we will see prior to the liftoff of the AX-3 crew. The next milestone that we have coming up will be arming of the launch escape system.
SpaceX, with that, you are go for Section 6, close visors, and arm launch escape system.
SpaceX Dragon in work.
All right, so right now the crew is activating the launch escape system. They're using the tablets there, the touchscreen in front of them. This system is the first of its kind escape system. It provides the escape capability all the way to orbit. It is our
SpaceX Dragon visors closed, arming launch escape system.
SpaceX copies.
We take every measure possible to ensure the crew has options at all times, including an escape in the worst of scenarios. It is our most solemn duty to make sure the crew gets home to their families. And we're here now seeing like we said, the crew is activating the launch escape system. If engaged, it would utilize the Super Draco engines, which are basically extra powerful versions of the Draco engines that Draco uses while on orbit. So generally speaking, we don't want to activate the Super Dracos, but they're there in case if necessary. So launch escape system arming is now underway. But let's talk a little bit about the control rooms that we are operating.
Launch escape system is verified armed.
All right, there we heard the call out telling us that that launch escape system is now activated. So here, this is our mission control center here just behind us, actually, at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. We also have launch control at Firing Room 4 at Cape Canaveral. That team is responsible for monitoring Falcon 9 throughout the countdown and the launch, whereas here, mission control is responsible for close monitoring of the crew and Dragon every step of the way as the spacecraft orbits the planet along its customized flight path. On console, or on headset, as we say, are a number of key positions who are monitoring the health of the vehicle and the crew. The mission director, call sign MD, as you'll hear out on the nets, that person's responsible for mission success and is in charge of the room. You'll also hear a specific role dedicated to communicating to the AX-3 crew. We've heard from this individual a couple of times already today. This is Jake Vendel today. This is the crew operations and resource engineer, call sign CORE on the nets. The other positions are focused on things like software, propulsion, navigation, avionics, life support systems, and ultimately communications with the ground segments. SpaceX team members will also rotate on and off to ensure that we have 24/7 coverage of crew and Dragon for the entire duration of the mission, all the way through splashdown. So fun fact, we also have a crew supporting the NASA Crew 7 team in an adjacent control room just next door to this one. So yeah, we have 24/7 coverage for all Dragons up at the space station.
That's awesome, Kate. And on that note, for Axiom Space, teams in Houston, as you can see there, coordinate mission support at Axiom Mission Control Center, or MCCA, as you can see on your screen. MCCA is an officially certified control center, joining the large network of other control centers, like you just mentioned, Kate, that support ISS from all over the world. From this secure facility, teams have live access to voice, video, data, all of that streaming from the ISS, and can work alongside their NASA counterparts to run on-orbit preparations and monitor every aspect of the mission in real time, 24/7, for the duration of the mission. This room is led by what we call an AXL, or Axiom Operations Lead. And around the room are also additional supporting flight controller positions that are each responsible for different aspects of mission support. That includes things like research, communications, medical, integration and stowage, and timeline operations. This is a significant step in our journey to expand access to low Earth orbit, as it is only the 12th ground segment partner for the ISS program. And through this facility, we are providing our customers and the global community a front row seat to the work being done on station.
Yeah, as you can tell by the names like core and axle, these are really important roles, and everything else kind of flows around them as the center point in those leading those operations, whether it's on the Axiom side or the SpaceX side. So as we await our T0 in just under 39 minutes from now, the ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure both the Dragon and Falcon are ready for launch. Let's take a look at what the Ascent portion of today's mission will look like.
Once we hit T-0, we'll watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic Launch Pad 39A, which you have a great view of right now, and begin to make their ascent. At about 43 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will throttle down to help us pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, or what we typically refer to as max Q. It's worth noting that once we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic, or faster than the speed of sound.
Once we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our Merlin engines again. From there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that happen in rapid succession. First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin engines shut off in preparation for stage separation. Stage separation is where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing, as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event.
That's second engine start 1, or SES1, where the Merlin vacuum engine on board stage
Expect
2.
loud venting from the vehicle in 30 seconds.
Where the engine on stage 2 lights up and propels the second stage, along with our AX-3 crew and Dragon, into orbit.
As stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, stage 1 will execute 3 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the boost back burn, where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will reignite and shut down. This heads the first stage back to Cape Canaveral. The second burn, or the entry burn, helps slow the stage down in preparation.
Falcon 9 tanks are venting for the start of propellant load.
Second burn, or entry burn, helps to slow the stage down in preparation for that entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. And about 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. The landing burn will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land back on land near the launch site about 8 minutes into the mission.
And while that first stage is heading back to Earth, the second stage will cut off its Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we'll wait for confirmation of a good orbital insertion. Then, Dragon will begin preparations to separate from the second stage. About 3 minutes after the second stage reaches orbit, we should have a great view of Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from stage 2. Once Dragon is a short distance away, it will begin checking out its Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure Dragon continues to increase separation distance from the second stage.
The nose cone deploy sequence will initiate just before T plus 12 minutes and then finish around T plus 15 minutes. This will expose Dragon's docking mechanism in advance of its arrival at the International Space Station. For us, these Dragon missions are important for safely flying astronauts so they can conduct scientific research and other activities in space, but also because they are laying the foundation for the future where more people from more countries all around the world will have an opportunity to travel to space, whether it's low Earth orbit, the moon, Mars, or beyond. In the history of human spaceflight, less than 700 people have ever been to orbit. At SpaceX, we want to help create a future where not just hundreds of people, but thousands and ultimately millions of people can travel off Earth to live and work in space and on other planets. Last year, we flew 6 Dragon missions. This year, we could launch up to 8 missions, including 5 or 6 human spaceflight missions, and that's only going...
Propellant load has started.
All right, right now we just heard the call that Falcon 9 has begun loading its propellants, liquid oxygen, and RP-1 rocket-grade kerosene, so good news there. As I was saying, this year that could include 5 or 6 human spaceflight missions, and that's only going to increase in the future. Thus far, we've only launched crew missions from Launch Complex 39A, which is what you see on your screen now. However, to support our growing manifest of Dragon missions, we've recently made some new upgrades to our other Florida launch pad, Space Launch Complex 40, which you see there with a brand new crew access arm being lifted. We're on our way to having 2 launch pads capable of supporting human spaceflight missions, meaning we'll have more opportunities to fly people on Dragon to orbit. If you're interested in helping us advance the future of human spaceflight and potentially fly on a future Dragon mission, check out spacex.com/human spaceflight to learn more. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the training that the crew has gone through in order to be ready for this mission. Altogether, the Axiom 3 mission crew spent about 35 days training inside Dragon, and crew members individually received additional training specific to their role, learning SpaceX protocols, ISS systems, and preparing for the science and outreach activities that they'll be conducting while in space. Private astronaut training is rigorous. To prepare the AX-3 crew for their mission, our teams here at SpaceX have spent the last several months teaching the crew about orbital mechanics, how to live in microgravity, and running simulations of full missions from inside our Dragon training capsules. The training program includes nearly 100 different lessons covering all aspects of flight. And if you're thinking it's kind of hard to tell what's the true training and what's the real capsule, that's true, because they're pretty much identical, and that's the point. The team also spent time at the launch pad, in the suit-up room, and working through emergency procedures that would be necessary in the unlikely event of a pad abort scenario. So let's take a further look at this crew in action.
Exactly. The crew spent extensive amounts of training time in historic Building 9 at the Johnson Space Center, learning from certified instructors on all critical systems necessary to ensure a successful stay aboard the orbiting laboratory. The team even prepared for unlikely emergencies, like you mentioned, Kate, and learned how to provide first aid in a microgravity environment. Additionally, they learned how to prepare food and make selections for their meals, as well as learning other mission control positions and how mission control operates to better ensure that mission success during their flight. They also had a chance to familiarize themselves with the gear that will enable them to document their trip, their research, and help them connect with those back on Earth during their outreach events. ESA and JAXA also played a critical role in crew's training. Each module on orbit has its own nuances, so gaining insight into the specialties of their racks and modules is necessary, especially for this mission. Extensive training on station navigation, on-orbit familiarization, emergency response, and repetition of walking through processes and procedures all help the crew maximize every second that they have during their flight. Simulating science research, operations, and even discussing how to sleep in space are all necessary lessons on the path to mission readiness. Now, the National Outdoor Leadership School, or NOLS, provides very unique Earth-based experience for many astronauts before they fly. This is really a bonding experience for the crew. It can't be overstated how much teamwork factors into every aspect of their flight together, and this training in particular aims to thoroughly establish that. They also focus on survival skills, resilience, leadership, equally as important as followership, and overall teamwork to ensure they really are more than just passengers on the same rocket. The camping and outdoor adventure provides a solid foundation for the team to build on throughout their training. NOLS was definitely a highlight of this crew's preparation and training, and you can hear it in their voices and see it on their faces when they talk about their bond with each other. Now, you can't truly experience flying into space until you fly into space. But some really unique tools have been developed to provide the closest experience possible. An altitude chamber can challenge the body with oxygen deprivation in a controlled and safe manner, while
Stage 1 cryo-helium load has started.
While human-sized centrifuges send the crew members for a spin to simulate the G-forces that they'll experience on launch and re-entry. It can be a bit nauseating, but it does help the crew know exactly what to expect on launch day. Now, at the end of it all, a mission patch is celebrated, and it is hung in a tradition since the earliest days of spaceflight. So fittingly, as AX-3 heads to the International Space Station, the crew had the chance to be present for the patch-hanging ceremony of their mission patch in Building 9 on that module in Johnson Space Center. Spaceflight is a serious business, but moments of levity and celebration like this help everyone pause and reflect on the incredible accomplishments being achieved every day. No matter how many patches join a canvas like this one, each one is incredibly special because of the people who make it possible. The crew and those here on Earth supporting each mission. So now for more on each crew member's portfolio, we're going to send you out to the Kennedy Space Center with Sonia Gavankar-McKay, the Axiom Space Director of Digital Strategy, who is joined by Axiom's Chief Scientist, Dr. Lucy Lowe.
Building on the success from AX-1 and 2, now 3 has over 30 experiments, and some of them returning customers. Lucy, good to have you back. This is one of my favorite parts of the pre-launch broadcast because we get to talk about all the science that's happening. There's so much happening. It's over 350 hours of research, which is great. But do we think like this is going to help us here on Earth? Does it really?
Absolutely. So everything the crew is doing, it has huge benefits, not only for spaceflight and advancing exploration goals for humanity, but a lot of the research they're doing is really based on benefiting humans down here on Earth, whether it's healthcare, medicine, different kinds of technology applications. Everything they're doing has really tangible benefits to science and technology back down here on Earth.
If you had to summarize each of the country's portfolios, how would you do that? Italy, give me some words.
They are doing some fantastic technical applications for the Italian Air Force, and they are doing some really advanced biomedical research as well with some of their companies that they're working with.
Excellent. Turkey, it's all about bringing all of Turkey together.
Exactly. Turkey has a truly national portfolio. They have everyone across the country getting involved, from researchers at universities all the way down to school children.
ESA and Sweden, what's their portfolio looking like?
ESA has a very strong focus on research for advancing technology for exploration. So they have lots and lots of really cool technology demonstrations that are going to help human exploration in space in future.
And tech demos as well. Do you as chief scientist, is that tech demos a different thing, or is it then research, or all part of the same wonderful pot?
They're very much part of the same pot. So all the technology demonstrations that take place are built on a lot of research, and they often feed into future research that will take place to keep crew safe or to benefit human health here on Earth.
Okay, so let's dig in a little bit deeper, starting with Italy. They have the ISOC services for the ISS. Tell me a little bit more.
Yes, so this is a project from the Italian Air Force, which is the Italian Space Operations Center, where they've developed some software that's actually going to be analyzing debris in space.
Which is a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. We need to know where stuff is going and stuff is flying so that we can make sure that the space station is out of the way of those kinds of impacts. So that software is also going to be doing some space weather forecasting to help keep crew safe in future.
Space weather forecasting?
Yes. Looking at different kinds of space weather from solar flares, for example, that can actually release damaging radiation that can not only damage human cells, but can also damage the electronics in a spacecraft. So you want to avoid that when you can.
Makes sense. Beta amyloids aggregation updated.
Yes.
This is about Alzheimer's research.
Exactly. So beta amyloid is a protein that aggregates together. It forms clumps. It forms amyloid plaques that are found in the brains of humans with Alzheimer's. If we can understand how those aggregates form better, which we can use microgravity to really investigate that, then we can gain insights into Alzheimer's disease and how this terrible neurodegenerative disease can form, or potentially how we could even treat it.
And you talked about that weather forecasting, which is part of radiation. That's a big part. So briefly tell me about the Italian portfolio with radiation research.
Exactly. So they have got some light ion detector hardware that they have built that is going to be analyzing the real-time radiation risk from this kind of space weather. And we also have some companies that have got some advanced materials that they've developed that is designed to shield from some of this radiation in future.
Okay, let's talk about the country of Turkey's research portfolio, the Turkish Space Agency, otherwise known as TUA. They have 70 types of diseases that they're going to be researching with AI technology?
Yes, so they have a really cool project called Vocal Cord, which has developed, it's an easy-to-use telemedicine application where the crew actually cough or speak or make vocal noises into an iPad for recordings, and the AI software is then actually able to analyze that and can be used to detect or diagnose infectious diseases, potentially even cardiovascular diseases in future.
Wow.
Very cool.
Partnerships are a big deal with Axiom Space. All of these countries are partners with us, and Turkey is working with JAXA on one of their research projects. Tell me about that one.
Exactly. So they're working on a very cool project using the JAXA's electromagnetic levitating facility, where they are melting and then re-solidifying some metal alloys in a way that the metal alloy floats in space.
Wow.
So which helps us understand more about the molecular structure of these alloys and helps us understand more about materials research that we can then take that knowledge and apply that to industry back down here on Earth.
And ESA in Sweden, looking way into the future. Their research is focused on humans in long-term space situations. Tell me about their research projects.
Exactly. So one of their projects is called Orbital Architecture, which is a really fun one. They're investigating what the effect of the very busy and crowded environment of the International Space Station is, not only on crew cognitive function, but also on the crew's stress responses and also their neural responses. So yes, as you can see, that the ISS is very, very busy up there.
We were talking about that. It seems very crowded.
It's very crowded. So this investigation is going to be understanding in different parts of the space station. For example, if you look out the window, if your stress response goes down, do you then perform better in space? And how can we then apply those technologies not only for future spaceflight, but also for engineering and building design back down here on Earth?
There's also a great one on Simon. Now, my question is, Simon, is it more like HAL or TARS?
So it's a bit more like TARS because
Okay.
I'm a big fan of The Martian. But so Simon is the crew interactive mobile companion. Here he is flying through space. So this is an AI-guided tool that is free flying on station that can help crew with tasks while they're up there. So it's actually going to be helping Marcus do a physical sciences investigation for ESA while he's up on station.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy. And I look forward to hearing about the post-experience and post-mission research findings. Thank you so much. Always fascinating. Back to you all at Hawthorne. John, how's it going out there?
It's going great, Sonia. Thank you very much for that. You know, hearing all that different research really kind of cements how important and unique each mission is, right? Each mission has its own suite of research. It has its own crew that makes up that mission. And mission patches really are a way of showing that symbolism and showing how unique that is, right? So they end up everywhere. There's one in that Dragon capsule. There's a few in that Dragon capsule now, I think, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they end up in white rooms. They end up on orbit. They end up on laptops and notebooks. It's a very big deal for crew to be central in helping design this patch because it's such a lasting mark of their dedication and hard work. And the AX-3 crew has put their mark on spaceflight history with the AX-3 mission patch. All 4 astronauts are highlighted by their names, a star, and unique graphics for each nation that they represent. With the commander, Michael Lopez Alegria, holding dual citizenship, 5 national flags mark the top edge. The destination, the International Space Station, is the anchoring element in the middle. And interesting to note, the ISS resembles pilot's wings. So it should be no surprise, given that all 4 members are indeed pilots. Along the bottom of the patch, we see the mission's motto, the phrase plus ultra, in Latin meaning further beyond. So together, all of this builds on the mission's theme of exploration and its slogan, exploring further without borders.
Yeah, like you said, they do end up everywhere. My personal favorite place is there inside the capsule. There's 2 patches in there, one from the Crew 4 mission and one, of course, from the AX-2 mission, which also took this capsule to space. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to be flying so much that we are going to potentially run out of space for patches.
You put them on the back of the seats, maybe?
Yeah. Now, the SpaceX teams have teams all across, or SpaceX has teams all across the country supporting our missions in key roles, and they're in key locations such as our mission director, our core or crew operations and resource engineer, which you see there on your screen now. And these people are very important. We keep talking about the countdown, and this launch countdown is the framework that syncs all of these teams up together. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've heard a lot of that today, right? As we're talking, we're hearing these loops or nets, right, of all these flight controllers talking. That's because communication is key. The entire mission, from launch, on orbit, all the way back down to splashdown, is a tightly choreographed dance between all of those parties, and that's where communication comes in.
For sure. It's precise communication specifically is paramount throughout the mission in order to be successful, not just for today and on the way to the station, but continually for the next 2 weeks, all the way through splashdown. Like I mentioned before, we have another team supporting the capsule that's on station for Crew 7. So yeah, it's all the way through until the mission is complete.
Exactly.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. T-minus 21 minutes and counting to launch. You're looking at a live view inside Axiom Mission Control and SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne. As we continue to count down, we are getting ready for the second stage's RP1 to begin loading. Loading of the first stage, RP1 and liquid oxygen, is now well underway. We're continuing to monitor the weather down on site, continuing at 80% go for launch, just monitoring that local weather. I've been getting updates from our team out in the field at the press site and also off at sea, and wanted to quickly bring this up here for just a quick little shout out showing our team out in the field. This was Gavin getting ready as they headed out to port. Said quick hello to a booster in port. We've got Eric and Joe. They are out at the press sites. On the left is some of our remote cameras set up at Launch Complex 39A. So definitely got our team spread across the Space Coast in preparation for today's flight, and huge shout out to all of them for being part of our team. We couldn't do this without them. So make sure you are following them on social medias and are in our Discord to see some of their photos. Also, make sure to be checking out our shop. After almost every launch now, we're uploading a couple new posters and prints. We're going to start doing some limited edition runs as well. So if you see something, you might want to grab it because you don't know how long it'll be available, and we help get those profits to our team to get them even better equipment, get them more opportunities. It's not cheap. A lot lot of our team drive 1 to 2 hours both ways for these launches, so we want to be able to take your guys' support, help them out, so we can bring you guys even better coverage. But a huge shout out to Joe, Eric P, and Gavin, and some of our other team that are out in the field there today. Gavin is out at the sea, and he says it is very choppy today, so probably a good thing that they are going for a landing zone landing and not a drone ship landing as we continue through today's countdown. T-minus 19 minutes and counting till launch. We're going to listen back in to SpaceX and Axiom Space mission control. There is a live view of Launch Complex 39A where you can see propellant load is well underway. We have RP1 load beginning on the second stage and now waiting for LOX load to begin, fueling up the second stage. The second stage is that white portion on top of the rocket just below the Dragon and its trunk, and that will be what circularizes its burn and sends Dragon on the initial trajectory to the ISS. Dragon will then use its own thrusters to maneuver over the coming hours to arrive at the International Space Station. Let's listen back in to Mission Control.
All right, for those of you that have recently tuned in, we are now within 20 minutes until the launch of AX-3 to the International Space Station. Officially, T-minus 18 minutes on the dot. We've had a pretty clean countdown so far today. As I mentioned before, this launch countdown is the framework that syncs everybody together. We have teams in Houston, here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, of course at the Cape itself, firing room 4, and everything is proceeding nominally. The reports that we heard earlier during the post-crew ingress briefing was that the weather was great, although we can see here on our screen a little cloudy, but we see some blue skies through there, so love to see that. We also heard that the team was working no major issues. Both Falcon and Dragon remained healthy. At T-minus, I believe it was 35 minutes. Yeah, T-minus 35 minutes, we began prop load or propellant loading. We now see some of these white clouds billowing from the vehicle. This is totally normal during this propellant load phase. We are currently loading our super chilled, also known as densified liquid oxygen onto the vehicle, as well as rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1. We will continue to see these clouds kind of forming, and we'll get even more of them right after those closeout lines complete at T-minus 3 and 2 minutes when both the first and second stages complete all of its propellant loading. Like I said, everything continues to look great. The crew is currently strapped into their seats. There's a 5-point safety harness. You can think of it like a seatbelt, but it's a little bit more advanced than that. Actually, we see a live view of the crew there waiting so patiently as we are getting... All right, so there we heard that call out that stage 2 LOX load has initiated. That is that super chilled liquid oxygen being loaded onto the Falcon 9 second stage, which of course is the part of the rocket just below that black and white trunk section that we see there on screen. So the crew, at this particular view, the person on the far left is Marcus Want, one of our mission specialists. To his right is pilot Walter Villaday. To his right is Commander Michael Lopez Alegria, or MLA, and on the very far right, mission specialist Alper Izarauche. Fun fact for today's flight, it is the first time that we have a repeat flyer on Dragon. That's Commander MLA. He flew on the Axiom 1 mission, and it's so exciting to see him flying once again in Dragon today. He's pretty much an expert at this point.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for that update, Kate. And now for an update from Sonia Gavankar-McKay at Kennedy Space Center with Deputy Administrator Bill Nelson.
Thanks so much, John. I'm now joined by NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so very close. NASA has so many decades worth of great relationships in the private sector with the commercial sector. Is this a winning strategy for the future? I know NASA is looking now further than LEO into going to the moon and even further. What does this look like going further, and what are we building on?
It's the new era of the golden age of space adventurism. We go back to the moon, for example, not only with our commercial partners And, you know, the 2 landers will be built by commercial companies. But we also go back to the moon with our international partners. Right. And that's quite a difference from a half century ago when we first went to the moon. And that's the way that our space flight is in low Earth orbit as well. Look at the international cooperation on the space station. Look at now the commercial operation on the space station as evidenced by this flight here today.
This moment really is that culmination of that international partnership, private, commercial, all of these things building on each other. How important is this for NASA to develop these commercial partnerships and across varying fields? I mean, Axiom Space, of course, building the Axiom station. We're working on the suits that'll be worn on the moon by the Artemis crew. How important are these partnerships for NASA?
Well, it's essential. We want to get out of low Earth orbit. We want to go and explore the cosmos. And so the more that we can bring commercial business off the face of the Earth up to low Earth orbit and, for example, replace the International Space Station when it ages out in 2030 with a commercial space station that then we can become a person who rents space to train our astronauts before we send them out to the moon and on to Mars, or the business aspect, pharmaceutical research, pharmaceutical production, all kinds of different research utilizing the properties of microgravity in space.
So you're seeing the Axiom station as an expansion of the area that is available to do this work, and this dynamic shift between NASA and organizations like Axiom Space really offers something new to the landscape. This really is the next golden age, isn't it?
Well, and Axiom is one of several that are now, with incentive money from NASA, building their concepts of a space station for low Earth orbit. And I am certainly hopeful that they are going to be successful, and that increasingly as they do research in space, they're finding out that there's a business case in order that they can actually have a profitable business.
Well, that's what we're looking forward to, and we're looking forward to just this great moment as we build these partnerships, these relationships. Thank you so much for having us here and for being part of this broadcast and sharing this wonderful moment for all of our organizations, SpaceX, Axiom Space, NASA, working together as usual, right?
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Senator. Thanks for joining us.
Go AX-3.
Go AX-3, that's right. As we charge towards terminal countdown to launch, Michael Lopez Alegria, today's commander, has a special message for his crew. Let's take a look.
Man, I am excited. We are getting very close. As we get to these last few minutes, I want to make sure we take a second to thank the training teams that got us here, that prepared this very professional team of astronauts to go to the International Space Station on this very historic mission. First, the NASA teams, both at Johnson Space Center in Houston and at Marshall and Huntsville, Alabama. Then to our international partners, ESA at the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, and Scuba near Tokyo in Japan. And the Axiom team, whose help really was important when it got down to training for all the payloads that we'll be doing, over 30 experiments, as I think you've heard. So we're excited and very thankful to all those guys, but last but not least, to the folks in whose very capable hands we find ourselves right now. That's SpaceX. Thanks to everybody. Without you, we couldn't have been here. Now let's go do it.
Great view of our AX-3 crew there, strapped in and ready for liftoff just over 10 minutes from now.
Dragon SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, the displays are so configured, and do you mind if I say a few words here, Jake?
MLA, I do not mind at all. You've got the floor.
So first I want to thank our partners who had the vision and the conviction to help Axiom open access to humans to low Earth orbit, and they are the Italian Air Force and its various ministries of its government, the Space Technologies Research Institutes of Turkey, TÜBİTAK, and the Turkish Space Agency and its ministry, as well as the Swedish National Space Agency in tandem with ESA. And I also want to thank the team. If you're listening to this through an earpiece sitting in Hangar X and Launch Control or in Hawthorne and Mission Control, you're on the team. And the same is true of people who'll be sitting at those consoles and consoles just like them, and Mission Control in Houston and the Payload Operations and Integration Center in Huntsville. Same is true for all the trainers that helped us get where we are today with the crew ready to launch. And of course, the engineers, technicians, managers, and executives who over decades designed, assembled, and are now operating the most complex vehicle in the world that we have the privilege to go visit. Same is true for the visionaries who conceived and developed this amazing rocket that we're sitting on and the beautiful and capable capsule that we're sitting in. And if you're in the Rescue Ops Center, you guys are on the team. And of course, so are our friends and families who have given us their love and support from the very first step of this journey. And last but not least, the team at Axiom Space, the people who have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into this. To the four of us that are lucky enough to man the good ship Freedom at this point, are humbled to be on the team. We're grateful to our teammates, and we are go for launch. Plus ultra.
Copy all, Mike. As we just ticked through T-minus 8 minutes, I'll let you know you've got a whole bunch of people rooting for you here and indeed all over the world. Godspeed, Axiom 3.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You heard some remarks there from Commander MLA as we now count down the final 7 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting, waiting for engine chill to begin on those 9 Merlin 1D engines on board Falcon 9 Booster 1080, going for its 5th flight here. I did want to bring up here very, very quickly, as we don't want to lose sight of the pad itself, but we have been having some fantastic views from the International Space Station throughout today as they do some flyovers, and one of the views we have right now, I'm going to bring it up very quickly here as engine chill now begins. Whoa, wrong button. There we go. Ooh. Wrong button. So many buttons. There is a live view from the International Space Station where you can see the Crew Dragon docked on the top for Crew 7, and to the left behind that round module, that is where Crew Dragon Freedom with AX-3 will be docking in the near future. But you can see a view there from the International Space Station. A quick look at our destination, but back to where we are launching from, Launch Complex 39A, the historic launch complex that saw all of the crewed flights that went to the moon, as well as a good portion of the space shuttle mission now flying crew. And it will be probably the first and last mission that this is the only pad Crew Dragon will be able to fly from, as we expect most likely the next launch to occur from Slick 40 of a Crew or Cargo Dragon. They do want to do one test flight without a crew first of a Cargo Dragon, but we expect to see that in the coming months as SpaceX brings on a second crew-rated pad on the Space Coast as they strive to hit 148 launches this year, which is truly incredible. The goal was 144, but they had to add 4 because they didn't get them done last year. So 148 is their goal this year. Last year they succeeded with 96 after a goal of 104. So hopefully we will see them hit that triple-digit number this year. As we come down to the final minutes of the count, I want to turn it over to the people that know what's happening, which is SpaceX Mission Control, the Axiom Mission Control, and the AX-3 crew. But if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launch Pad. We bring you full live launch coverage, docking, undocking, and return to Earth coverage of all the missions, not only with SpaceX, but from all the companies around the world. And we invite you to engage that subscribe button so you never miss any of that live coverage. And join us over on our TLP Discord. We're hanging out in live comms for a launch watch party, and I'll be in there post-launch for kind of a post-hangout, answering some more of your questions, so we invite you to join us there. As always, as we enter the final minutes of the count, we'll do it a little bit earlier than normal, but we want to see that go, no-go from you guys in the chat for today's flight. T-minus 4 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. Let's listen back in to SpaceX and Axiom Space and Mission Control.
We'll be able to see those clamp arms begin to open. And there they are now, and then that strong back will retract a couple degrees away. It will retract even further upon ignition of the engines to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. As I mentioned before, RP1 is completely loaded onto the vehicle. We're still loading liquid oxygen onto the first and second stage. And obviously some happy cheers as the crowd is growing outside of Mission Control Hawthorne, as you see there on your screen. It's always awesome to have an astronaut launch, but especially one during the day.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
With that confirmation, we know that stage 1 is fully loaded. Team is thrilled to hear that news behind me. At liftoff, stage 1 combined between that RP1.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
There is confirmation that Dragon is on internal power and headed into the final minutes of our countdown. As I was saying earlier, at liftoff, Falcon 9 will be burning nearly 700 gallons of fuel per second. Great views there, too, of our crew inside Dragon, awaiting liftoff just over 2 minutes from now.
We're now standing by for completion of LOX load on the second stage. Just topping off. And there's that call out. And more cheers from our crowd here at Hawthorne, California.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Confirmation there that Dragon is in auto idle. Wow, great view of 39A on your screen right there as we head toward launch.
Gas close started. Expect loud venting.
Call out to our crew there that loud venting is expected.
T-minus 60 seconds.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There's that
Dragon is in countdown.
Confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup and Dragon is in countdown, which means that the vehicles are now controlling the final seconds as we lead up to liftoff.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
And there's confirmation from our flight director.
Go for launch.
We are go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15.
12, 11, 10, 9,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, engine full power, and liftoff. Go Axiom Crew.
Further beyond, opening the door for more to follow. Godspeed, AX-3.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
Of course, if you are just joining us, this is the launch of the Axiom 3 launch to the International Space Station. Those incredible views on your screen, and there's our first shot of the AX-3 crew inside Dragon on Ascent. Now, in just a few seconds here, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9...
power and telemetry. Stage 1 throttle down.
There's that call out that Falcon 9's engines are throttling down to help us pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure during ascent.
Max Q.
There's that call out for Max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
And that Falcon 9 is going faster than the speed of sound. Now, at this point, we will begin to throttle Falcon 9's engines back up.
Stage 1 throttle up.
There's that call out for mission control as well, as our AX-3 crew continues on their way to space.
T plus 90 seconds into flight.
We're now T plus 1 minute and 32 seconds into flight. The next event we have is MVAC chill, similar to what...
MVAC chill underway.
There's that call telling us that, again, we're flowing a little bit of that super chilled liquid oxygen.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy 1 Bravo.
That call there was one of the abort mode callouts that the crew is calling out as they are making their ascent on Falcon 9. Now, we're less than 30 seconds or a few seconds away from 4 events that will happen in rapid succession. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, as it's there on the bottom of your screen, stage separation, ignition of the first stage engine, and the first stage's boost back burn.
Stage 1 throttle down.
That call telling us that the engines are beginning to throttle down.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed.
SpaceX Dragon 2 Alpha.
Some loud cheers here as we can see that the
Stage 1 boost back startup.
first and second stages have separated. A beautiful view there. The brighter light is the second stage under power of the MVAC engine. That first stage booster is now heading back toward the Florida coast. One thing I love about daylight launches is we're going to get some amazing views. We should be able to see the Space Coast come back into view as the first stage gets closer and closer to landing zone 1. Note that that first stage is actually still coasting to its apogee. So it's about, as you can see there on your screen, 114, 115 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And it's going to keep coasting for a little bit. Beautiful view there on the right-hand side of your screen of that MVAC engine.
Boost back shut down.
All right, that boost back burn has concluded on the first stage. Everything looks nominal with the second stage trajectory. Everything.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're seeing grid fin deploy, the MVAC engine continuing to burn, and we heard a good call out of boost back shutdown. Really interesting thing to note. Today's launch is launching on a northeasterly trajectory. That's how we get to the International Space Station from the Space Coast. But we launched from Launch Complex 39A. We are landing at landing zone 1 and 2, which are further south. So this boost back burn is actually seeing this rocket not only return to the launch site, but returning to landing site, which is further downrange. So that's why you're seeing this higher altitude than we normally see for an apogee of a first stage when it's just coming back down to a drone ship, because it conducted that boost back to give it a little more oomph to get to landing zone 1. And actually for where Gavin is out on the ship, from the view of it, it all happens directly above him. So an amazing day out there. Make sure you stay tuned for hopefully some captures from that. We were hearing really rocky seas, so it's a good thing it's not a booster drone ship recovery. But if you're just joining us, we're coming up to 5 minutes into flight. AX-3 on their way to the International Space Station. That next major milestone will be entry burn of Falcon 9 booster 1080. It's completed its 5th Ascent mission, and now we are seeing it come back to the Space Coast and land at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, technically a different launch facility than where it took off from at NASA Kennedy Space Center, even though they share a border together. After that, we'll be watching for the landing burn, and then we will watch for Dragon to separate and the nose cone to open. But let's listen back into SpaceX and Axiom Space Mission Control as AX-3 continues on their way to the International Space Station. Booster 1080 comes home.
That entry burn we're waiting on here is going to be a relatively quick burn, and what we're doing with our first stage is effectively scrubbing off some of that velocity as we come in for landing.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
That's a nominal trajectory for Dragon as we continue to orbit.
Dragon, we copy.
Again, confirmation from the crew. And we are expecting about 2.5 more minutes from that second engine burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
As we heard the call out, that entry burn has concluded. The next burn will be the landing burn. As I mentioned before, we're heading back to landing zone 1. We're going to come through the clouds right now.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Everything continues to look nominal for
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
For the second stage there on the right-hand side of your screen. These views really are breathtaking. Such clear, crisp views of both the first stage on the left and the second stage on the right. Right through with these clouds should be our first view. Once again, there it is. Just like magic, we see landing zone 1. Crowds cheering here at SpaceX Mission Control Hawthorne as we tune in to see if we stick the landing. And if you couldn't tell by the loud cheers, we did stick.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
We did stick that landing. Falcon 9 has landed once again. But turning our attention back to the crew, as you see there, our next event is second engine cutoff, or SECO, as it's referred to there at the bottom of your screen. Second stage will coast for a few minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate. A lot of just the energy here at SpaceX Mission Control is buzzing. You can hear commentary behind us. Right now, the crew is experiencing about 3 Gs, so pretty much a roller coaster.
And if you're just joining us, you saw a beautiful touchdown, Falcon 9 piercing through those clouds at the last moment, coming to landing zone 1. 8 minutes, 25 seconds into flight. The crew continuing nominally. I saw some questions. When is docking? Obviously, we're still waiting for SECO 1 and Dragon separation. We'll be staying live through all of that, so stay with us here. We'll be answering some of your guys' comments and questions, so you can send that in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. But to give you an idea, AX-3 is scheduled for rendezvous and docking on Saturday, January 20th at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time, with docking expected at 5:15 a.m. Eastern, followed by welcome remarks. And we will be bringing you live coverage of that. That's going to be a long day because that's the day I'm heading off to the Space Coast just a few hours later, but we will be live for rendezvous and docking, and we'll probably try to get some sort of Dragon tracker up if we do get their location on a tracking map. But you can see there a live view inside Dragon, the crew looking happy. They're still under power of that, and we've had SECO 1, excuse me. So that does mean that they are now experiencing zero gravity. You can see their arms floating a bit more. And of course, we are looking for that zero G indicator. Now, it's no surprise this time. We know what the zero G indicator is. In fact, we have a version of it here in the studio that I will grab. They are reusing the zero G indicator from AX-2. And you can actually get your own not copy, but your own version of their zero-G indicator. We were thrilled to be able to acquire one. This is a scaled-up version of the zero-G indicator that is flying on board today. This is a partnership they did with Build-A-Bear, but this is a scaled-up version. The real size is about the size of a pop can, so definitely check those out. I'm sure they're online, but we're super glad to, for the first time, have the zero-G indicator in studio while we wait to see it on air. Super awesome there, and an awesome little thing to have in the studio. So we're glad to be able to have that. Thanks to Axiom Space for having us out for AX-2 and all of that. T plus 10 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting. We're waiting for Dragon deploy to occur. If you guys have questions, keep sending those in. Richard wished they would show the second stage entering their atmosphere for as long as it could before it burns up. They do get that video. They don't release it publicly solely because it doesn't always re-enter the same day. Sometimes these things re-enter days or weeks later, all dependent on the orbits that they've put it in. So it's that you wouldn't want to be staying live for 3 weeks just watching that float. I mean, maybe you would. It'd be beautiful to see the planet, but definitely would be something interesting to see. As we pass 11 minutes into flight, let's listen back into SpaceX and Axiom Space Mission Control as we count down just a couple of minutes until Dragon deploy.
Starting to see the crew there play a little bit with the fact that they are operating in microgravity.
See some questions.
And a great shot of mission control.
Can we call to order Build-A-Bear? You can order one on their website. I don't know if they have global shipping or not. We got ours when we were in the States. But check it out. You can. When we ordered it, there was options. You can get it with the bear that they've assigned, but it is a actual outfit. So like you can get whatever bear or stuffy and put it on the spacesuit. So it is optional. And there we have Dragon deploy. Crew Dragon Freedom has separated from the second stage and is on its way to the International Space Station.
As you can see, Dragon has separated from the second stage. A pretty cool view here looking up at the heat shield that will return the AX-3 crew back to Earth in just about 2 weeks. So this is our first view of AX-3 flying free. The next physical change that we will see will be the deployment of the nose cone. That will take...
Dragon, this is the SpaceX Falcon team. We want to congratulate you on a great ride to orbit. I think you're demonstrating the ultimate in reuse, a reused Commander, a reused Dragon, and a reused Falcon. Or maybe flight experience is a better word. Enjoy space.
And Axiom 3, y'all Durst, and as I was saying, it's a team sport. Thank you guys.
And Axiom 3, this is your launch director here. Walter, Albert, and Marcus. Congrats, welcome to your first flight on Dragon. Mike, on the other hand, welcome to the Dragon Frequent Flyer Club. I imagine you'll have enough miles to qualify for platinum status after this flight. Godspeed, Axiom 3, cheers.
Mark, thanks to you and your team. We're very grateful up here.
So some back and forth between the AX-3 crew as well as AX-3 Chief Engineer Bill Gerstenmayer, who, oh, I heard the ping. That is our first Quindar tone of AX-3. Fun fact, Bill Gerstenmayer was actually chief engineer on AX-1, which is the mission that MLA was also commander of. So if you want to talk about reuse, we also have some reuse on our side as well. We also heard some nice words from launch director Mark Soltis. So just some really nice communication from both the Falcon team and the Dragon team to the AX-3 crew.
And with that, our AX-3 crew is in orbit and on their way to the International Space Station. Obviously, great views of the crew there. And now mission control, again, that's...
SpaceX Dragon. Jake, any chance you could encode one of the centerline cameras? We could watch the nose cone.
The crew's getting right into it. I love it.
Dragon, we copy on the request.
I love that even the crew's like, can we watch the nose cone open? Guys, you're
Dragon,
in space.
We expect that will automatically happen in the state machine here imminently.
So with that, we are going to throw it back over
We see hooks still traveling.
Okay, we stand by.
Great views there of our crew, again, on their way to the International Space Station. And already getting right down to the business of operating Dragon.
Now, the nose cone sequence did begin at 12 minutes 46 seconds into flight, almost immediately following Dragon separation, but it does take quite a bit of time for them to actually get the nose cone open, and I meant to grab one of my other pieces before we actually did go live here. To explain what that we are actually seeing on board, because we don't really get that many wide shots of it. But Dragon is now floating free. It is attached to the Dragon trunk. Sometimes they'll store other stuff in there. What we're waiting for is Dragon hatch opening. And that's this hatch here, and it opens, and then it locks into, because we still have gravity, I have to do it this way, it'll lock in the open position. And the reason we do that is the 4 black dots that you see on the outside here. Those are some of its primary thrusters. It does have, of course, other thrusters on the sides of Dragon all the way around, but those 4 thrusters they use for a lot of their maneuvering and approaching the International Space Station. It is also one of the points that the ISS will use to lock on as it approaches, and we will see a lot of that on Saturday as we watch for that final rendezvous and docking. So that is what we're waiting for. Now, to open the hatch, this has obviously been sealed during flight. They have to take some bolts that auto-retract, just like when they're docking to the station. Those are retract, and the clamps, and then slowly, very slowly, the hatch will open over a couple of minutes, and it'll stay open until they detach from the International Space Station, till they've done their re-entry burn. Then they will close it down, they will separate from the trunk, and they will come back home. But that is what will happen in a couple of weeks' time. But we're waiting for Dragon hatch to open here, and we should have a live view of that in the next couple of minutes from onboard crew Dragon Freedom. Now, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live as we get ready for nose cone deployment and then the final minutes of today's stream. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage or the docking of AX-3. We're expecting that to occur on Saturday, January 20th. We will begin our coverage around 3 a.m. Eastern Time. Docking expected at 5:15 a.m. Eastern. That camera view you're seeing there that's glitching out is the nose cone camera, so we're waiting to see that start to open. There you can see that nose cone. I'll symbol it here, is starting to crack open onboard Dragon as it prepares to expose that hatch where Inspiration 4 had the cupola, where Polaris Dawn will spacewalk. Well, on this mission, that's where they dock to the International Space Station. So you're starting to see the clamp edges of the hatch as it retracts away from the opening. Some people asking about the Build-A-Bear. I will get links after the stream, and we will post those in our Discord. So make sure you join us over there in the space chat. I will make sure I can drop those on if those are available. We are... Sorry, I broke. We just got a footage. We're watching the Crew Dragon hatch opening. Bear with me as I patch in some pictures here. I want to give an incredible shout out to Gavin. Gavin has just sent in his pictures from being out on the range, and we're going to patch these in. These will come up on the shop a little bit later today, so make sure you stay tuned for those. We're watching hatch opening, and I'm going to cut in here because I think these are pretty cool. These are right off the ship. These are from Gavin, our TLP rocket chaser, a booster 1080 landing at landing zone 1. Yes, this is the booster that you just saw launch and just land. And yes, we already have the footage coming in from onboard the ship that Gavin took out. Some absolutely incredible shots coming out, and these are quick edits to get these on air. Gavin, congratulations. This was Gavin's first time going out on the boat for this type of capture, and you absolutely crushed it, bud. Definitely stay tuned to the TLP shop. We will be releasing these on the shop later today, most likely. So stay tuned for those. Again, huge shout out to Starfleet Tours. We've gone out with them many times, from Inspiration 4 to Artemis 1 to now AX-3. Incredible group of guys running that and their captains. So definitely make sure to give them a check out. But congratulations, Gavin. Some incredible shots there. We've been continuing to follow along. We do have that hatch opening, which means AX-3 is on their way to the International Space Station. Rendezvous and docking expected to begin about 3 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, so we hope you will join us for that. Let's listen in to NASA Mission Control.
And with today's successful launch of AX-3, the teams at NASA's Johnson Space Center will be monitoring Dragon's flight to the International Space Station over the next 36 hours. NASA's role in this journey really kicks in at a period called Integrated Operations, where Dragon is much closer to the station. At this point, NASA, SpaceX, and Axiom Space teams are all in lockstep to get the crew safely docked. The teams here are preparing for a docking of AX-3 to the station on Saturday morning. For now, that will be it from us in Mission Control Houston, and we'll be back with you Saturday for docking. And for now, we'll send it back to you, Kate and John.
Thanks, Courtney. And we did hear that we had nominal opening of the nose cones, so that is great news. Yeah. Now, over the next 30 hours, 30 plus hours really, Dragon will execute a series of burns to gradually raise and line up the AX-3 crew for docking with the International Space Station and what we refer to as the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. In just a few minutes, the crew will change out of their spacesuits and get a little bit more comfortable for flight, and something that would be my favorite part, enjoy their first meal aboard the spacecraft.
And AX-3 on their way to the space station, bringing in another photo here from one of our rocket chasers. This is from Joe out at the press site. Joe does have some remotes, so stay tuned until we can recover those, but an incredible capture here from Joe of AX-3 launching behind that beautiful American flag out at the NASA Kennedy Space Center press site. Another picture that we'll be heading on over to the shop later today, so make sure you stay tuned for that dropping as well. Not only do we offer metal prints, but we do offer posters now. I know metal prints are out of a lot of people's budgets, so we're excited to bring you an opportunity to get posters, and it is launch day, which means if you use promo code launch day, you can get 10% off of everything over on the store, and global shipping is available. But incredible work to Gavin and to Joe and Eric, and I know our team are processing their pictures. We're waiting to get acquisition of the remotes, which we'll get in the next couple of hours back from the launch site, and we'll see how those turn out, because those are ultimately in the space god's hands, as we can't control those, that we set them and just hope that they work and hope that batteries last. But with that, with those incredible pictures from our TLP rocket chasers on site, that's going to do it for us here today. If it was your first time here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. I hope you'll join us over in our Discord for kind of a post-show hangout, or right back here on January 20th on Saturday for the rendezvous and docking of AX-3. But from our TLP Canada studio, my name's Zach, and we'll see you next time, because space is better together. Goodbye.